to do is the next chapter which we'll pick up for revision is going to be TCS and TDS. We will do TDS and TCS, both we will try to complete it. One small chapter, two sections, section number 51 and 52, that we will try to do. So TDS and TCS. TDS is under section number 51 of the CGST Act, TCS under section number 52 of the CGST Act. This small chapter will try to wind it up, but before that, let us take one short break. Okay, so we'll try to resume back now. So the next chapter, as I have told, we are going to pick up is the next chapter which I'm going to pick up for revision is going to be TDS and TCS. Very small chapter, but very important from the examination perspective. These days, we are seeing very frequent questions from this chapter as well. So let us see. First, 51, we'll try to cover TDS. Section number 51 of the CGST Act puts some responsibility on TDS deduction. Sir, what exactly is this TDS mechanism? Just let me give you an overview so that you will get the clarity. See, under Income Tax Act, you might have already been aware of a mechanism called TDS. Under Income Tax Act, the person, for example, if you have to receive some income, the person who has to pay you that money, he will not pay you full amount of money. He will deduct some percentage in the name of TDS and he will deposit it against your PAN number. So what is the whole purpose here? See, let us say you are an employee. Let us say you are qualified, you are chartered accountancy, you are an employee, you are working with some company. Every month he is required to pay you 1 lakh rupees of salary. But as we all are aware, under Income Tax Act, we have a concept called TDS where your employer will not pay you complete 1 lakh rupees. He will deduct TDS. Let us say, for example, 10%. He will deduct 10% of TDS. So 10,000 rupees he will deduct. Balance 90,000 rupees only he will pay you. So 90,000 rupees you will effectively get it. Now what he will do that 10,000 rupees which has been deducted? So this 10,000 rupees, can your employer enjoy with that money? No, your employer can't enjoy with that money amount, with the amount of money of TDS which has been deducted from you. So what he will do, this 10,000 rupees, he will go and deposit against your PAN number. So you will have a PAN number, no? Against your PAN number, he will go and deposit this money. Okay. So now what you will do, after the financial year comes to an end, you will file your ITR. In your ITR, you will declare your income. How much income you will declare? So 1 lakh rupees of salary every month into 12 months, total 12 lakh rupees of salary you will declare. Now you will calculate your tax liability. Let us say, for example, your tax liability is coming to somewhere around 1,50,000 rupees. But you will not pay the tax amount of entire 1,50,000. But what you will do? You will claim that TDS amount. The amount of TDS has been deducted from you. No, every month 10,000 rupees has been deducted at the rate of 12 for 12 months. Total 1,20,000 rupees of TDS has already been deducted. So that TDS you will adjust it against your tax liability, and whatever excess amount is there, that only you will be paying. Right. Similarly, on the other hand, one more case what could also have happened is your tax liability might be lesser than the TDS amount. Let us say your actual tax liability is coming to 1 lakh rupees only. But against you, the employer has already deducted a TDS of 1,20,000. So now what you can do is, since you have your excess TDS amount, the balance amount, you can claim it as refund. This 20,000 rupees, you can claim it as refund. So TDS is actually a mechanism to prevent the tax evasion. So if there is no concept of TDS, this person might file his return, might not file his return, he might pay the tax, he might not pay the tax. So Income Tax Department doesn't want to have that tax evasion. So that's why they have brought up this concept of TDS under Income Tax Act. A similar kind of TDS mechanism even GST has also brought up in order to avoid the tax evasion. So how this TDS mechanism will work in the GST is, let us say, for example, there is one supplier. He made some supply of goods or services. To a recipient. So now let us say some 10 lakhs worth of supply has been made. Now the recipient is required to pay that amount. No, the recipient is required to pay the amount of that consideration along with GST. Let us say, for example, 10 lakhs and 1,80,000 rupees of GST. Total 11,80,000 worth of invoice has been given. A supply has taken place. Now the recipient has to make the payment of 11,80,000. Now, after getting this payment, this supplier might declare this supply in his outward supplies in his GSTR1, or he might not declare it. If it declares, his government will get the revenue. If the supplier is not declaring that outward supplies in his GST return, if the supplier is not declaring, sir, what is evasion? Evasion means escaping. Yes, evasion means escaping. So in case if the supplier did not declare that GSTR1 in his, did not declare that outward supplies in his GSTR1, then what will happen? This liability government will not get. So government wants to avoid it. So what they have told, they have put one responsibility on the recipient. Dear recipient, in case if you are buying a supply from the supplier, and in case when you are making the payment, when you are required to make that payment, don't make the full payment. What you do is deduct the TDS. what do? You deduct the TDS. So TDS at the rate of 2%, you have to deduct it. So you are making a payment of 10 lakh rupees, no? On the, you are required to make a payment, exclusive GST amount. You are required to pay exclusive GST amount, 10 lakh rupees you are required to pay, no? So on that 10 lakh rupees, you deduct TDS. On that 10 lakh rupees, you have to deduct a TDS. So TDS at what rate? So TDS is required to be deducted at effectively 2%. TDS is effectively required to be deducted at 2%. So on this 10 lakh rupees, calculate 2%. So if I calculate the 2%, how much I will get it? To 20,000 rupees I will get it. Yes or no? So this 20,000 rupees will be deducted, and balance 9,80,000 rupees GST amount fully you have to pay. Balance 9,80,000 along with the GST amount that you will pay to the supplier. Okay. Now this recipient has deducted this 20,000 rupees of TDS. No, what he will do with that money? Can the recipient enjoy with that money? No. This TDS is required to be deposited against the GSTIN number of the supplier. This TDS amount, whatever has been deducted, that amount can't be enjoyed by the recipient. That amount is required to be deposited again as the GSTIN number of the supplier. So this 20,000 rupees will be deposited again as the GSTIN number of the supplier. Now thereafter what will happen? Now this supplier has made a supply. He has got the payment also. So now what he will do, in his GSTR1, he will declare his outward supply. Sir, what is the outward supply? Let us say, for example, if you take only this case, 10 lakh rupees is his outward supply. And he will declare that his output tax liability is 1,80,000. But he's not a fool to pay that entire 1,80,000. Why? Because the recipient has already deducted the TDS and the amount has already been reflected in that amount has been deposited against the GSTR number of the supplier. This amount of TDS, he will claim it in his electronic cash ledger, where this 20,000 rupees, this supplier will claim it in this 20,000 rupees, this supplier will try to claim it in his electronic cash ledger. So where in the electronic cash ledger, what he will do, in his electronic cash ledger, already 20,000 rupees of amount is lying. So that 20,000 rupees, he will try to adjust it against his output tax liability. Balance is how much? This 1,60,000. That 1,60,000 only he will try to discharge it using his either electronic credit ledger or using his excess balance in the or using his cash balance. So this is what the entire TDS mechanism. This is what, if I have to simply put it, entire TDS mechanism. But here are some technicalities we are required to discuss. But do you guys get the concept of this entire discussion? What is TDS mechanism and all? So recipient, before making payment to the supplier, he is required to deduct TDS at the rate of 2%, and that amount of TDS which has been deducted, that will be deposited again as a GST and number of the supplier, and that amount of TDS the supplier can claim it in his electronic cash ledger. Where he can claim that amount? He can claim that amount in his electronic cash ledger. So where the supplier will declare his outward supplies and he will declare that output tax liability. Against that, he can use that balance in the electronic cash ledger which he has got it by way of TDS credit. Understood till here? Now, if you go to the technicalities, sir, does that mean every time whenever a supplier is making the supply to the recipient, on all supplies will the recipient deduct the TDS amount? Do you think on each and every supply under GST, will the recipient will be under an obligation to deduct the TDS amount? The answer is no. TDS is required to be deducted only when some conditions are fulfilled. TDS is not applicable in all cases. TDS will become applicable only when some conditions are met. Sir, what are that conditions which are required to be met in order to deduct, in order for the recipient to be required to deduct the TDS? Number one, this TDS mechanism is not applicable for all recipients. The recipient should be a specified recipient. The recipient should be a specified recipient, or let me put it this way, notified recipient. The government has notified certain recipients. So let me put it this way. The government has notified certain recipients. Only for those recipients, TDS provisions will become applicable. Only for that recipients, only for the notified recipients, this will become applicable. Only for the notified recipients, TDS provisions will become applicable. Then, and TDS will become applicable only for that notified recipients also when the value of supply under a contract exceeds 2,50,000. When the value of the supply under a contract exceeds 2,50,000, then only TDS will become applicable. Able to understand? I will tell you who are that notified recipients, how to calculate that value of supply, all that I will tell you. But here you have to remember it. The correct way of remembrance I am telling you. So when TDS will become applicable, TDS will not become applicable on each and every transaction. TDS will be deducted only when the recipient is a notified recipient and when the value of supply under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000 rupees, then only TDS will become applicable. So first we will see, sir, who are that notified recipients for whom TDS will become applicable? So if you come to the material here, the government has notified these people whom we call them as deductors. Deductors means the person whoever is deducting TDS, basically recipient. So deductors of tax at source. Section 51 empowers central government to mandate specified persons to deduct TDS. And who are that specified persons? Number one, central or state government department or establishment. Establishment of central government or state government. Department or establishment of central government or state government. Except a few departments of Ministry of Defense. So when it comes to Ministry of Defense, that is also department of central government only. But TDS provisions will not become applicable for all departments of Ministry of Defense. Only for specified departments of Ministry of Defense, TDS will become applicable. Remaining departments of Ministry of Defense are exempted. For all other departments, TDS will become applicable. But for when it comes to Ministry of Defense, since Ministry of Defense, they are dealing with arms and ammunitions, it contains information regarding national security. So that's why they did not make TDS applicable on all departments of Ministry of Defense, only for a few departments of Ministry of Defense. So whatever it is, first category of notified person to whom the TDS will become applicable is to if the recipient is central or state government or establishment of central or state government. Number 2, local authority. Number 3, government agency. Number 4, any other notified persons or category of persons. Now under this 51 subsection 1 clause D, some extra persons are also notified. Initially the government told establishment or department of central government or state government, local authority, government agency. They have reserved a clause. In future if they want to notify extra persons, they can notify extra persons also. And in fact they have notified these extra persons. Who are that extra people who have been notified on whom the obligation of deducting TDS has been put? Number 1, an authority or a board or any other body which is set up by an act of parliament or state legislature or established by any government with 51% of more equity or control by government. So not just direct government entities, if any body or if any authority, if any board has been established either under an act of parliament or under a state legislature or which is established by the government in which 51% or more of equity or control must be there by government, either central or state. And also any society which is established by central government, state government, local authority under Societies Registration Act. And even public sector undertakings, PSUs, are also notified. Or registered person receiving supplies of metal scrap. If the recipient is a registered person, if he is receiving supplies of metal scrap falling under 72 to 81 in the first schedule to the Customs Tariff Act from other registered person, then also TDS will become applicable. So tell me, who and all are the notified persons here? Number 1, department or establishment of central government or state government. Number 2, local authority. Number 3, government agency and other notified persons. Who are all that other notified persons? Number 1, if any authority or body or board established by central government or state government greater than or equal to 51% of control or equity must be there by government. Society which is established by central government, state government or union or local authorities. Then they have told PSU and also a registered person. So what is that last category? Recently they have added this. Who is that one more person who is required to deduct TDS is if the recipient is a registered person, if he is receiving supplies of metal scrap from another registered person. Now this recipient who is a registered person receiving the supplies of metal scrap from another registered person, he is also required to deduct TDS under section number 51. So only these notified recipients, only these are the deductors who have been notified who will be required to deduct the TDS. Understood? So if I'm a normal common person, if I'm receiving supplies from another person, am I required to deduct TDS? Not required, because you are not falling under that notified recipients category. So first condition we have covered. Sir, what is one more condition? Value of supply under a contract must exceed 2,50,000. So these recipients also, on every supply whatever they are receiving, they are not required to deduct TDS. They are required to deduct TDS only on those supplies. Although only those kind of notified recipients are only in respect of those supplies where value of supply is more than value of supply under a contract is more than 2,50,000, then only TDS will be deducted. So here if you see, so deductees, suppliers whose total value of supply exceeds total value of taxable supplies, taxable goods and services under a contract exceeds 2,50,000 exclusive of taxes and cesses as per the invoice, then only TDS will become applicable. Now there are few important points, few intricacies which you need to remember. Let us say for example, the recipient is a specified recipient. Let us take PSU. They are receiving supplies. Okay, so where they are receiving a supply amounting to 2,50,000 plus GST, if I add it, let us say 15,000 rupees of GST, total 2,55,000 worth of supplies this PSU is receiving. PSU is a notified person. Whether TDS will become applicable? So I told value of supply under a contract when it exceeds 2,50,000, then only TDS will become applicable. Now my doubt is, while calculating the value of supply, should I consider the value of supply exclusive of taxes or should I consider the value inclusive of taxes? They have clarified that consider only value of supply excluding the taxes. So here value of supply under a contract is 2,40,000 only. TDS will not become applicable. Let me tell you one more case. So there is a PSU here. They're receiving supplies. Taxable supply amounting to 2,50,000. Taxable supply. Exempt supply amounting to 20,000. On taxable supply, GST is there, which is coming to 15,000 rupees. Total 2,75,000 rupees worth of supply they are making. Now, PSU is a notified person. So, whether TDS will become applicable here. TDS will become applicable, as I have told, only when the value of supply under a contract exceeds 2,50,000. Now you tell me here, what is the value of supply? Did it exceed the value of 2,50,000? Now the point which is there in your mind is, while calculating the limit of that value of supply, should I consider only taxable supply or should I also consider exempt supply? They are asking you to consider only value of the taxable supply. Only taxable supply value you have to consider. Exempt supply you should not consider. So value of supply here is only 2,40,000 rupees, which since the contract value did not exceed 2,50,000 rupees, here also TDS will not become applicable. Let me give you one more case. Let us say there is a PSU. They have entered a contract for 10 lakhs worth of supply. They have entered into a contract for 10 lakhs worth of supply. Now they have sent one invoice. Invoice number 1 has come, in which the value of supply is 2,40,000 rupees only. Invoice number 2 has been given, in which the value of supply is 2 lakh rupees only. Invoice number 3 has been given, in which the value of supply is once again 2,50,000 rupees only. And invoice number 4 has been given, in which invoice value is 1,50,000. So like that, the total contract is for 10 lakhs, but they are giving individual invoices. In each invoice, the value of supply is less than 2,50,000 only. Will TDS become applicable? Will TDS become applicable? Yes. Yes, TDS will become applicable. Why? Because what they are saying is, they are not asking you to check the invoice value. They are asking you to check the value of taxable supplies under a contract. Under a contract, you might be giving a multiple invoice. We will not apply that limit of 2,50,000 rupees for each invoice. We will apply the value of 2,50,000 rupees of limit for all the invoices under a single contract. So under a single contract, you are giving multiple invoices. So here value of supply, value of taxable supply under a contract, under the value of under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000 rupees. So from invoice 1 itself, we have to start deducting TDS. Able to understand? Clear? Right. So this is what regarding who should be specific, who should be notified recipient, and how to calculate the value of supply. Now, there are some cases where TDS will not become applicable. That means even though recipient is a notified recipient, even though the value of supply under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000 rupees, still TDS will not become applicable. When, sir? When the supply is happening among the notified persons. When the supply is happening among the notified recipients only. Let us say, for example, one PSU is supplying the goods to another PSU. So here PSU is a notified recipient. Recipient is specified person. Value of supply under a contract is more than 2,50,000 rupees. But still TDS is not required to be deducted. Why? Because the supply is happening among that notified recipients. Or let us say one central government department or establishment is making supply to some society which is established by central government or state government under Societies Registration Act. Both are notified persons, both are notified deductors. So if supply is happening among themselves, TDS is not required to be deducted except this person, except the last person. Except the last notified person is there, no? Who is the last notified person? Recipient of metal scrap. Recipient of metal scrap. Let us say, for example, there is a PSU. If that PSU is making supplies of metal scrap, PSU is also registered, and they are making a supply to a recipient who is a registered person. Sir, this is also a supply happening among notified persons only, no? Will TDS become applicable? Yes, here TDS will become applicable. So the point which I want to say here is this one. If supply of goods, this point you read it, the supply of goods or services, if it is taking place between one person to another person specified. So among these people only, if the supply is happening, between these people, if the supply is happening, then TDS is not required to be deducted, excluding the last one. Except the person referred to in here. So except this person. That means these are all the notified recipients, right? If the supply is happening among themselves, these three, and this 3. If the supply is happening among themselves, then TDS will not be applicable. But if the supply is happening among these persons and this registered person receiving supplies of metal scrap, then TDS will become applicable. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable? Clear and comfortable? Right. So let us try to proceed ahead. Let us try to understand further. So this is one case where TDS will not become applicable. There are also few more cases where TDS will not become applicable. There is also one more case where TDS will not become applicable. Many a times a question in the exam will come on this point. Listen carefully. So sometimes what will happen is recipient is a notified person. Recipient is a specified recipient. Value of supply under a contract has also exceeded 2,50,000 rupees. But still TDS will not become applicable. When, sir? One case I have already told. If the supply is happening among those between those specified recipients except that clause D, then TDS will not become applicable. One more case I am going to say you now. Even though the recipient is a specified recipient, even though the value of supply is under a contract is more than 2,50,000 rupees, still TDS will not become applicable. Sir, what is that one case, sir? When the location of the supplier and place of supply, they are falling in the same state. They're falling in the same state or union territory, which is different from the location of the recipient, which is different from the state of registration of the recipient, which is different from state or union territory of the recipient, then TDS will not become applicable. Even though the recipient is a specified recipient, even though the value of supply under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000, still this is one such case where TDS will not become applicable. What is that one such case? Where the location of the supplier and the place of supply is falling in the same state or union territory, which is different from the state or union territory of recipient, then TDS will not become applicable. The logic is very simple. Instead of remembering it like this, I will tell you one simple logic to remember it. So you understand the concept behind it, then the discussion will become very clear. So let us see. So what is that? What is this point trying to say here is, let us say for example, location of the supplier is in Andhra Pradesh. Place of supply is also in Andhra Pradesh. Location of the recipient is also in Andhra Pradesh. Will TDS become applicable? Yes. Why, sir? Let me tell you what exactly will happen here. See, when the location of the supplier, place of supply, both are falling in same state, it is what supply? Intrastate supply. So if it is intrastate supply, let us say transaction is happening for 1 lakh rupees. Transaction is happening. So supplier is registered with AP government. Recipient is also registered with AP government. Recipient is also registered with AP government. Both are registered with AP government only. So on this supply is an intrastate supply. So this recipient is required to deduct TDS. Which TDS is required to deduct? Since it is an intrastate supply, CGST at the rate of 1%, SGST at the rate of 1%. If it is interstate, directly 2%. If it is intrastate, CGST 1%, SGST 1% he will deduct. Which state SGST he will deduct? AP state, because he is registered with AP only, no? So now this amount has to be given as credit in an electronic cash ledger to the supplier. Now where the supplier is registered, supplier is also registered with AP state government. So that CGST credit he can claim it in his electronic cash ledger. Since he is also registered with AP state government, AP GST related credit also he can claim it. AP GST related TDS also he can take it in his electronic cash ledger. Any problem here? No problem. Why? Because all are located in the same state. Now let me tell you different scenario. Let us say location of the supplier, place of supply, location of the recipient. Location of the supplier is in Andhra Pradesh. Place of supply is in Tamil Nadu. Location of the recipient is in Karnataka. Will TDS become applicable? Yes. Why? Why? Because let us say here once again, let me give you diagrammatic presentation. Supplier located in AP. Recipient is located in Karnataka. So he will be registered with Karnataka state government. Supplier will be registered with AP state government. Okay. So now 1 lakh worth of supply has taken place. What is the nature of supply? Since location of the supplier, place of supply is falling under two different states, that is an interstate supply. If it is an interstate supply, here the recipient will deduct TDS. How much? At the rate of 2%. Which TDS? IGST he will deduct. So IGST, let us say for example 2000 he has deducted. Now this IGST is required to be claimed by the supplier in his electronic cash ledger. How he will claim it? IGST he will claim it. IGST credit of 2000 he will claim it in his electronic cash ledger. Will there be any trouble here? No, here also there will not be any trouble. Now let me take you the another case. Location of the supplier, place of supply, location of the recipient. Let us say location of the supplier is in AP, place of supply is also in AP, but location of the recipient is in Karnataka. That means location of the supplier and the place of supply both are falling in one state, which is different from the state or union territory of the recipient. Okay, so once again, if I give you a presentation here, there is a supplier in Karnataka, supplier in Andhra Pradesh. He is registered with AP, he is registered with Karnataka. 1 lakh worth of supply has taken place. Now you tell me what is the nature of supply. Since location of the supplier, place of supply, both are falling within same state, it is a what? Intra-state supply. So if it is an intra-state supply, this recipient is required to deduct CGST, and Karnataka, since he is registered with Karnataka government, Karnataka GST also he has to deduct. 1% he will deduct, 1% he will deduct. Now this amount is required to be claimed by the supplier in his electronic cash ledger. So CGST he can claim, no trouble. CGST 1% he can claim in his electronic cash ledger. But supplier is registered with AP government, AP GST state credit he has to take in electronic cash ledger. But the recipient would have deducted Karnataka GST. Recipient has deducted Karnataka GST, but supplier has to collect the credit in AP GST cash ledger. So do you think will this state governments allow it? No, state governments will not allow it. So this will create a problem. So in order to avoid all this headache, they told in this case, TDS itself will not become applicable. In this particular case, TDS itself will not become applicable because they don't want the fights between the state governments. I hope you guys are able to understand. So if you understand the logic, no, the concept will become very clear. But for the exam, you have to remember this. If the location of the supplier and the place of supply, both are falling in same state or union territory, which is different from the state or union territory of the location of the recipient, then TDS will not become applicable, even though the recipient is notified, even though the value of supply under a contract has exceeded 2,50,000 rupees, still TDS will not become applicable. Okay, so what did I tell you till now? So when TDS will become, first, the recipient must be notified. Who and all are notified, we have seen. Value of supply under a contract must exceed 2,50,000. How to calculate the value of supply, we have seen. And also, what are that specific cases where TDS will not become applicable? That also we have seen. Now coming to the next point, sir, what should be the rate of TDS? What should be the rate of TDS which is required to be deducted? As I've already told you, standard rate of deduction. If it is intrastate supply, 1% CGST, 1% SGST. If it is interstate supply, 2% IGST. Now, this 1%, 2% also, whatever you are calculating, will you calculate that 1%, 2% on the value inclusive of GST or exclusive of GST? This TDS you are required to deduct, no, either at the rate of 1%, 1% or 2%, let us say effectively 2. This TDS is required to deduct, no. From which value you will deduct it? Will you deduct it on the value of supply? Let us say 10 lakhs is the value of supply. 1,80,000 is the applicable rate of GST. You will deduct that 2% on this 10 lakh rupees or 11,80,000. You are required to deduct the TDS on the value exclusive of taxes, not on inclusive of taxes. You have to deduct the TDS on the value exclusive of taxes. Okay, so that's what we try to say it here. Deductors must deduct 1% of CGST from the payment which is created. Okay, all this I have explained. Now let us go ahead and understand remaining points. Deposit of TDS with the government. This point also I have clarified. Whatever amount of TDS that has been deducted from the payment to be made to the supplier that can't be enjoyed by the recipient, that is required to be deposited with the government. And also a TDS certificate will be given by the deductor. Whoever is deducting that TDS, he should also make available to the supplier one TDS certificate in form number GSTR 7A. And what details will be given in that TDS certificate is TDS certificate number, GSTN of the deductor, name of the deductor, GSTN of the deductee, legal name of the deductee and trade name, tax period in which that tax was deducted, and also details of the supplies, amount of tax deducted. Sir, what if the deductor is not remitting that amount to the government? He deducted TDS, but he is not remitting that amount to the government. What will happen, sir? He will be liable to pay he will be liable to pay interest under section number 50. And whatever amount of TDS that has been deposited, as I have told, that will get reflected in the electronic cash ledger. And deductor will file a return called GSTR 7. So these deductors are there, no, they will deduct TDS, no, they will be required to file one return GSTR 7. They have to file by 10th of the succeeding month. Along with filing of the GSTR 7, they will also pay the TDS amount to the government, and that amount will get reflected in the electronic cash ledger of the deductee. Deductee means supplier. Next, so this point is not relevant. If any excess amount has been deducted, if any excess amount is deducted and deposited, that amount can be claimed as refund. Either deductor can claim it as refund or deductee can claim it as refund. And those people who are required to deduct TDS under section number 51, they are required to undergo compulsory registration. If you remember section number 24 related discussion, we have seen a bunch of people. We have seen a list of people who are required to undergo compulsory registration under section number 24, right? So there I have told you under section number 24, one category of persons who are required to undergo compulsory registration is TDS deductor. So if you are a person who is required to deduct TDS under section number 24, you will be liable to undergo compulsory registration under section number 51. And it will be a special case. You will get the registration within 3 working days only. So this is what regarding TDS provision. Okay, successfully 51 we are done. Now we will try to talk about TCS, collection of TCS under section number 52. Sir, what is this TCS concept? This also I will give you first overall structure. Thereafter we'll go into the technical discussion. TCS provisions are only applicable for e-commerce operator. TCS provisions are only applicable for e-commerce operator. And what is that e-commerce operator? What is that application says? Let us say we have Amazon. So Amazon is an e-commerce operator. So practically what will happen in the Amazon business model? There will be suppliers who will be registering with Amazon. So on Amazon, they will list the products. And there will be a customer, like you and me, there will be a customer who will go through the Amazon and who will place an order. So let us say I liked a mobile phone. I placed an order on Amazon. Now Amazon will route that order. Amazon will route that order to the supplier. Now, what supplier, this Amazon, once I place the order on the Amazon, this Amazon only will collect the consideration. No, let us say for example, 50,000 worth of mobile phone they have purchased. Now 50,000 rupees of amount will be collected by e-commerce operator. And that order will be forwarded to the supplier. Now supplier has to dispatch the mobile and send it to the recipient. Supplier has to dispatch the mobile and send it to the recipient. Now what Amazon will do? Amazon has to remit that amount, whatever amount they have collected from the supplier, from the recipient, they have to remit it to the supplier. So they have collected 50,000 rupees. Generally what will happen is on that 50,000 rupees and all, they will collect their commission for listing charges and all like that, various charges will be there. So they will deduct their commission and all and remit the balance amount to the supplier. This is what usually should happen. Now what they have told is on the e-commerce operators, they have put one extra responsibility. What extra responsibility they have put is whenever you are remitting the amount to the supplier, whenever you are remitting the amount to the supplier, don't remit him the full amount. Anyhow, you will deduct your commission. In addition to that, you also collect from him something called TCS. You collect from him some amount called TCS. That amount you deduct it from the settlement which you are required to make it to the supplier. So practically what will happen is, in this case, if 50,000 has been collected, from that 50,000, first e-commerce operator will deduct his commission. Thereafter, under section number 52, he is also required to collect something called TCS. The TCS amount is also required to be collected and balance amount only will be remitted to the supplier. Balance amount will be remitted to supplier. Sir, now what is the rate of that TCS? 0.5%. What is the rate of TCS? 0.5% of the net value of the taxable supplies. So TCS at the rate of 0.5% will be deducted and balance amount will be remitted. Okay, sir, what he will do with that 0.5%? He has deducted, let us say, if I calculate it here, it will come to somewhere around 250. So what this e-commerce operator will do with that TCS amount? He has collected TCS, no, under section number 52, that amount he is collecting and balance only he is remitting it to the supplier, no. What he will do with that amount of TCS? Can he enjoy with that money? No, he can't enjoy with that money. Then what he will do with that money? That amount is required to be deposited with the government. That amount is required to be deposited with the government. Again, as the GSTIN number of the supplier. This 250 will be deposited by the e-commerce operator again as the GSTIN number of the supplier. Now what supplier will do? Supplier can take that credit in his electronic cash ledger. So whatever amount of TCS that has been deducted by the e-commerce operator, that the supplier can claim it and that amount will get credited to his electronic cash ledger, and that can be used by the e-commerce, that can be used by the supplier to settle his output tax liabilities. That can be used by the supplier to settle his output tax liabilities. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? So this is what the whole concept of TCS under section number 52. Okay, so whenever a supplier is making the supply of goods or services, not just for goods, even if any services are getting supplied, but services other than those notified under 9 subsection 5. For services, in case supply of services through an e-commerce operator, for services other than notified under 9 subsection 5, on that only TCS will be collected. So what are the services notified under 9 subsection 5 that we have already covered in the charge of GST chapter? I told you 6. Initially 5 used to be there. 1 was added to the list recently. So 6 services are there. On that 6 services, if that 6 services are supplied through the e-commerce operator, TCS will not be collected. Apart from that 9 subsection 5 services, if any other services or goods are getting supplied through the e-commerce operator, on that goods or services, e-commerce operator will be required to collect the TCS at the rate of 0.5% and deposit that with the government again as a GSTIN number of the supplier, and the supplier can avail that in his electronic cash ledger. Understood? Clear, everyone? Now, there are few things which we need to be clear here. Let us say, for example, there is a company called Sleepwell. There is a company called Sleepwell. Now this Sleepwell is selling the furniture. Now this Sleepwell is having a e-commerce platform also. They are having their website, sleepwell.com. They have their own website. On that own website, they will sell their own products. They will not sell others' products. They will not sell others' product. Let us say, for example, today if I want a chair of the Sleepwell, what I can do is I can go to the website sleepwell.com, and from there I can place an order for the chair, and that sleepwell.com will deliver that chair to me. So this is also a e-commerce portal. This Sleepwell website is also an e-commerce operator. But through that portal, are they selling others' goods, or are they selling their own goods? Through that e-commerce operator, they are selling their own goods. They are not selling others' goods. Do you think there also will TCS provisions will become applicable? No, TCS provisions will not become applicable there. So the point which I want to clarify here is TCS provisions will become applicable only on such e-commerce operator through which they are selling others' goods or services. If through the e-commerce operator, if they are selling their own goods or services, then TCS provisions will not become applicable. Then TCS provisions will not become applicable. Understood? Clear? And also one more point which I would like to bring it to your attention here. There might be a cases where e-commerce operators will not be collecting the consideration. There are some e-commerce operators. Let us say, for example, there used to be a platform called eBay or something like that. A platform used to be there where suppliers only list their products on that e-commerce operator. Recipients will buy the product, but that e-commerce operator will not collect any consideration. Consideration will be directly collected by the supplier only. Just they will list their product on the e-commerce operator, but recipient directly will pay the consideration to the supplier only. In that case also, will TCS provisions become applicable? No, in that case also TCS provisions will not become applicable. Why? Because if e-commerce operator has not collected any TCS amount only, how they can do it? If TCS operator has not collected any TCS amount, if the e-commerce operator has not collected any consideration, how they can collect the TCS amount? Not possible. No. So this is also one case where TCS will not become applicable, where the consideration is not collected by the e-commerce operator. Consideration is collected directly by the supplier. Understood? Clear, everyone? So that's what they try to say it here. So this is what I have told, overview of TCS and all. I have told who is liable to collect TCS, e-commerce operator, at what rate, 0.5% of net value of taxable supplies. If it is interstate supply, 0.5%. If it is intrastate supply, 0.25% CGST, 0.25% SGST. And this 0.5% or 0.25% should be calculated on net values of taxable supply. Sir, what do you mean by net value of taxable supply? The total value of taxable supplies minus returns. In a month, generally what will happen is this TCS will be remitted on monthly basis. In 1 month, what is the total values made by the supplier through that e-commerce operator? Let us say he made 10 lakhs worth of supply through the e-commerce operator. But returns also are quite possible. Let us say 2 lakh worth returns are there. So they will take out that 2 lakhs worth of return. Net 8 lakhs. How much? Net 8 lakh worth of value of net taxable supplies has been supplied through the e-commerce operator by that supplier. On this, they will multiply that 0.25% CGST, SGST or 0.5% of IGST in case of interstate supplies. On net value of taxable supplies, they are required to collect that TCS amount. Okay. This also I have given you how to calculate that net value of taxable supplies. I have clarified. Then what? Deposit of TCS amount by the ECO. Whatever TCS amount which has been collected by e-commerce operator that they can't enjoy with that money, they have to go and deposit that with the government. And even this TCS operator is also required to undergo compulsory registration, and they will also be granted registration within 3 working days. And what and all are various monthly and annual returns which are required to be filed by ECO is they're required to file one monthly return, GSTR 8 by 10th of the succeeding month, and that TCS credit will be made available to the supplier in his electronic cash ledger. And these e-commerce operators are also required to file one annual return in GSTR 9B. These due dates can be extended. And also the proper officers can send a notice to the e-commerce operator to provide additional information. If the proper officer feels that some extra information they can get it from e-commerce operator, even they can issue a notice to the e-commerce operator to share that extra information with them. Clear? That's all. With this, we have completed TCS and TDS related provisions. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? Right. So if you come back to the index, what and all we have covered now. So today we have covered this place of supply chapter and TDS and TCS chapter. So now what one more thing which I would like to do now is I like to do is I wanted to take you through the contents of tax invoice, debit and credit notes. This I will try to quickly do. This chapter, tax invoice, debit and credit notes, I will try to quickly do it in the today's live session. So many students have been asking me for exemptions. Exemptions, I will try to do it, but not today. Today, I'll try to end the live. So one more last chapter, which I will pick up now for live session is tax invoice, debit and credit notes. So this we will try to do quickly, tax invoice, debit and credit notes. So once we are done with the tax invoice, debit and credit notes, we will wind up the live sessions. We will wind up this live sessions. Thereafter, what we will try to do is exemptions I will definitely do. Not all exemptions, I might not be able to do it, but a bunch of exemptions, whatever important exemptions are there. So all that exemptions I will try to pick up, and I will try to upload that video. I will do an upload of video, will not do it in a live session. So today we'll try to end our live sessions. And one more last topic which I'll be doing it live revision is going to be tax invoice, debit and credit notes, that we will try to do the revision now in this session in the live. Many of you guys have been asking for exemptions. That exemptions I will try to record it, and I will try to upload it, because exemptions is such a huge chapter. We can't do 100% revision. So what I will do, all the conceptual things from that exemptions chapter, all the important things, very frequently tested questions from that exemptions, that all that I will identify, and that I will try to record and upload it. Okay. So now what I will be doing is quickly I will be taking you through the content of tax invoice, debit and credit notes that I will try to cover. Okay. Why? Because from here also some questions are going to come, and this tax invoice, debit and credit notes is having a strong connection with the time of supply chapter also. Time of supply chapter I will not be revising. Why? Because the time of supply chapter is completely of remembrance. Only that is remembrance part. Even if I have to revise it also, just I have to read the material, nothing else I have there to do. But this time of supply is having a strong connection with the tax invoice, debit and credit notes. So that's why I'll be doing tax invoice, debit and credit notes now. So let me take you through that content now. Okay. So first, the main discussion which we are going to now here we are going to have is section number 31. Section number 31 is the section which is the main section which is going to talk about various kinds of documents and what are the time limits for issuance of those documents. So mainly, first I will be trying to pick up section number 31, where I will be trying to cover 31 subsection 1, 31 subsection 2, 4 and 5. So 31 subsection 1 and 31 subsection 2 will talk about what 31 subsection 1 is going to talk about what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in the case of supply of goods. 31 subsection 2 will talk about what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in the case of supply of services. Subsection 4 will talk about what is time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of goods. Subsection 6 will talk about what is time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of services. So this time limits you have to remember. So 4 subsections of section number 31 I am going to talk about. 31 subsection 1, what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of normal supply of goods. Then we have 31 subsection 2, which is talking about what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of normal supply of services. 31 subsection 4, what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of goods. 31 subsection 5, what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of services. Remember it. Why? Because this will have a linkage with the time of supply chapter. So first of all, in case of normal supply of goods, what is the time limit within which I am required to issue the invoice? They say that in case of normal supply of goods, invoice shall be issued before or at the time of removal of the goods. In case if you are making a supply which involves the movement of the goods, invoice is required to be issued on or before the removal of the goods. In case if the supply does not involve any movement, then the invoice is required to be issued on or before the delivery of the goods or making that goods available to the recipient. So very simple. 31 subsection 1, in case it will talk about what is the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of supply of goods. If it involves movement, if you are making a supply which involves the movement of the goods on or before the removal of the goods. If you are making a supply which does not involve any movement of the goods on or before the delivery or making the goods available, this is the maximum time limit within which you are required to issue the invoice. Thereafter, in case of supply of services, what will be the time limit? In case of supply of services, you can give invoice either before the supply, at the time of supply, even after making the supply of the services also you can give invoice. In case of supply of services, either you can give invoice before, at the time, or even after making the supply also you can give invoice, but there is a maximum time limit. So what is the maximum time limit? So invoice shall be issued either before or after provision of service, but within a period of, if you are a normal person, you are required to give invoice maximum within 30 days from the date of supply of service. What is the maximum time limit? In case of normal suppliers like you and me, if you are providing the supply of services, we have to issue the invoice within 30 days from the date of supply of services. Whereas in the case of insurer, banking company, financial institution, including NBFC, invoice is required to be, they can give invoice within 45 days from the date of supply of the service. For normal people, within 30 days from the date of provision of the service. For insurer, banking company, financial institution, including NBFC, they can give the invoice within 45 days from the date of supply of services. Okay, so this much you remember it. Thereafter, 31 subsection 4. Thereafter, 31 subsection 4. In case of continuous supply of goods. In case of continuous supply of the goods, what will be the time limit within which you are required to issue the invoice? So in case of continuous supply of the goods, they say that invoice shall be issued before or at the time each such a statement is issued or payment is received. In case if you are making continuous supply of the goods, where the supplier is giving periodical statements, on or before that successive statement you are required to issue invoice. In case if the supplier is not issuing any statement, just you are making periodical payments, on or before that payment you are required to issue the invoice. If the supplier is giving successive statements, on or before that statement, if the supplier is not giving you successive statement, directly you are making periodical payment on or before that payment. So whatever the case is, accordingly you have to give the tax invoice. Whereas in case of continuous supply of services, what is the time limit for issuance of invoice? Here they have told three things. In case of continuous supply of services, you have to check the contract. Is a due date ascertainable? In the contract, let us say for example, this I will try to explain with the help of example. First of all, we need to understand what is continuous supply of service. In order to qualify as continuous supply of service, they say that there should be a supply of service on a continuous or recurrent basis for a period exceeding 3 months. For more than 3 months on a continuous or recurrent basis, if you are providing services, then only it will be treated as continuous supply of services. There is no such condition for continuous supply of goods. For continuous supply of goods, they simply say that if you are providing the goods on a continuous basis or recurring basis, it will be considered as continuous supply of goods. But for continuous supply of services, in order to qualify as continuous supply of services, the services must be provided on a recurrent basis, on a continuous basis for a period exceeding 3 months. Then only we'll call it as continuous supply of services. Very important, you have to remember this definition. And in case of continuous supply of services, what is the time limit within which you are required to issue the invoice? First, you have to check the contract. If in the contract or agreement, due dates are clearly given. Let us say I am providing construction services, which is going to definitely go on for more than 3 months. So I am making a continuous supply of service. Now contract will be there. If in the contract, due dates are clearly given. Let us say for example, 25% of the payment you are required to make it on or before 31st of March 2025. 50% of the payment you have to do it on or before 30th of June 2025. And 75% of the payment you are required to make it by 15th of September. So like that, if the due dates are clearly ascertainable on or before that due date, for that respective portion you have to give the invoice. On or before that due date, you have to give the respective portion invoice. Let us say for example, entire contract value is 1 CR, 25% payment I have to make it on or before 31st of March 2025. So that's why for 25 lakh rupees, I am required to generate the invoice on or before 31st of March 2025. So like that, if due dates are clearly ascertainable, on or before that due date, you are required to issue the invoice. But sometimes what will happen is due dates are not clearly given. Due dates are linked with completion of event. Due dates are linked with completion of event. In case if the due date is linked with the completion of event, invoice is required to be issued on or before the completion of that event. Let us say I have told in the contract that on completion of ground floor, 20% payment you are required to make. On completion of the first floor, another 30% payment you are required to make. So here due dates are linked with the completion of the event. In that case, invoice is required to be issued on or before the completion of this event. So let us say on or before completion of the ground floor, I have to give the invoice for the 20% value. On or before completion of the first floor, I am required to generate the invoice for 30% of the value. So another case, let us say if due dates are not at all ascertainable. I did not give in the contract any fixed date, even it is not linked with any completion of event. If due dates are not ascertainable, then what will happen? On or before making the payment. On or before receiving the payment. You are a supplier, no? On or before you receive payment, you have to generate the invoice. That's all. So this is how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of services. Clear? So we have covered 4 subsections. 31 subsection 1, how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of normal supply of goods. 31 subsection 2, how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of normal supply of services. 31 subsection 4, how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of the goods. 31 subsection 5, how to determine the time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of services. Then we have 31 subsection 6, which says that what if supply of services ceases before its completion? You have agreed to provide the services. Before even you could complete the service is ceasing, the service is stopping. Let us say, for example, I told you I will teach you the CA final IDT for 2 months. And I have started providing the services. After 1 month itself, I am stopping it. I am not providing it. So in case if the supply of service is ceasing before its completion, till that portion, whatever service I have provided, for that I have to issue invoice or not? Yes. And that invoice you have to issue it. That invoice you have to issue it at the time when that supply ceases. Whenever that supply of service is stopping, at that point of time you are required to issue the invoice, not for full amount, only to the extent of supply made before such a cessation. Before that stopping of service, whatever portion of supply I have provided, for that portion I have to issue the invoice at the time when that supply is ceasing. Then one more point, this is important for exam and MCQs. 31 subsection 7, what is the time limit within which I am required to issue the invoice in case the goods are sent on sale or return basis? In case if you are sending the goods on sale or return basis, what is the time limit within which you are required to issue the invoice? They say that in case goods are sent out on sale or return basis, invoice I am required to issue either before or at the time of making supply. Either at the time of making supply or 6 months from the date of removal, whichever is earlier. You have to issue the invoice earlier of the following dates, before or at the time of supply, or 6 months from the date of removal, whichever is earlier. Sir, what exactly they are trying to say? Let us say, for example, on 1st of January. On 1st of January 2026, I am sending 10,000 quantity of the goods. Not for the purpose of making supply. Not for supply, but I am sending these goods on sale, on return or approval basis. That means I will send these goods. If the customer accepts it, then only sale will happen. If the customer does not accept it, he can send me back. So initially I am sending this 10,000 quantity. Am I required to issue invoice here? No. I am causing this movement of the goods not for supply. I am causing this movement of the goods not for supply. I am causing this movement of the goods for reason other than supply. Here invoice is not required, but we will give one document called delivery challan. So here I will not give any invoice. So I will move the goods on delivery challan. Now these goods are lying with the recipient. Now recipient after some time either he will accept or reject it too. Let us say, for example, out of the 10,000 quantity, some 5,000 quantity he has accepted. 5,000 quantity, this person has accepted. On, let us say, for example, on 5th of March 2026, this person has given approval for 5,000 quantity. So 5,000 quantity, the supply has taken place on 5th of March 2026. So for that 5,000 quantity, invoice is required to be given on or before 5th of March. Some another 2,000 quantity, he gave the approval on, let us say, for example, on 5th of May, he gave the approval for 2026. On 5th of May 2026, he gave approval for 2,000 quantity. So this supply has taken place on 5th of May. On or before 5th of May, you are required to issue the invoice. Balance 3,000 quantity is there, no? That 3,000 quantity was not given any approval. And 6 months from the date of removal is already over. 180 days, sorry, not 6 months. What is the terminology they use here? Yeah, 6 months they use. So 6 months from the date of removal is over. So once again, if you come to your notes, so from 1st of January 2026, 6 months are over. Let us say, for example, 1st of July 2026 is over. But for this 3,000 quantity, I did not get any approval. Still what the act says, on or before that 1st of July, on or before the expiry of that 6 months, you are required to issue the invoice for that 3,000 quantity also. Even if he has not given acceptance, still it will be deemed to have been supplied. For that 3,000 quantity, you are required to issue the invoice on or before 1st of July 2026. You are supposed to issue the invoice. Understood? So that's what the meaning of this content here. Very important point. Where goods are being sent on approval for sale or return basis, invoice is required to be issued on or before the earlier of the following dates. What is it? If the actual supply has taken place at before or at the time of supply, or maximum within 6 months from the date of removal of the goods. Understood? So this is what regarding various circumstances and various time limits within which you are required to issue the invoice. If you pay close attention, we have covered 31 subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 4, subsection 5, subsection 6, subsection 7. Sir, what happened to subsection 3, sir? What does 31 subsection 3 will talk about? 31 subsection 3 will talk about some special documents. 31 subsection 3 will talk about some special documents which will be given in special circumstances. So if you open section number 31 subsection 3, there will be each clause which is talking about a separate document. Like 31 subsection 3 clause A, it will talk about revised tax invoice. 31 subsection 3 clause B, it will talk about some other document. 31 subsection 3 clause C, there will be something called bill of supply. Here it is consolidated invoice. Then we have 31 subsection 3 clause D, there will be something called receipt voucher. 31 subsection 3 clause A, there will be something called refund voucher. 31 subsection 3 clause F, there will be something called self invoicing. 31 subsection 3 clause G, there will be something called payment voucher. So like that, in different circumstances, different documents will be given. That all is covered under 31 subsection 3. Let us see what are all that special documents and when they are going to be issued. Okay, so let me come here. 31 subsection 3 special circumstances. Right, yeah, special cases. First, I will talk about 31 subsection 3 clause A, which is talking about a document called revised tax invoice. Sir, what is that revised tax invoice? I will try to explain it in a simple manner. Let us say you become liable for registration on 1st of February 2026. You become liable for registration. Within 30 days, you are submitting the application. On 28th of February 2026, you are submitting an application for registration. Thereafter, you got your registration certificate on 20th of March. Thereafter, you got your registration certificate on 20th of March. But even though you got the registration certificate, on 20th of March, in this case, it will be effective retrospectively. This point I have told you in registration chapter itself. In case if you become liable for registration, within 30 days, if you are submitting an application for registration, at a later date, you will get the registration certificate, but that registration will be effective retrospectively. So your registration will be effective from 1st of February 2026. Whatever supplies you have made from 1st of February 2026 till the time you got the registration certificate, you would not have collected GST. Why? Because you have got the GST-IN here only on 20th of March only. You got to know about your GST-IN, but you become liable to pay the GST from 1st of February itself. So that's why what the department has given you an option is, in this case, from the date you become liable for registration till the date you got the registration certificate, you will be given an option to issue something called a revised tax invoices. For your suppliers, you can give a revised tax invoices charging the amount of GST separately. So that is what we call it as a revised tax invoice. And this option will become applicable only when the person has made an application within 30 days. In case if the person has made an application after 30 days, then there is no concept of revised tax invoice. Understood? Clear and comfortable? So that's what they try to say it here. A person whose registration is effective from a date earlier than date of issuance of the registration certificate, he can issue revised tax invoice. And what is the time limit within which revised tax invoice is required to be given? Within 1 month from the date of issuance of the registration certificate. You will get the registration certificate, no? Within 1 month from this date of registration certificate, within 1 month, you are required to issue that revised tax invoice. If at all you want, it is an optional facility. It is not mandatory. It is an optional facility. If at all you want to give revised tax invoice, you can give revised tax invoice, but you have to do it within 1 month from the date of issuance of the registration certificate. Understood? So this is what the concept of revised tax invoice. Now going ahead with a few more things here. No tax invoice is required in some cases. No tax invoice is required. So 31 subsection 3 clause B says that you are not required to issue tax invoice. When, sir? When your recipient is unregistered. When the recipient is an unregistered person, value of supply is less than 200 rupees, and recipient did not ask for invoice. Recipient is not asking for invoice. Then you need not give a separate tax invoice. Small transactions. For small transaction also, if you waste your time on giving the tax invoice and tax invoices and all, it will become a costly affair. So that's why what they have told is, when all these conditions are fulfilled, what are they? Recipient must be unregistered person, value of supply should be less than 200, and recipient did not specifically ask you for invoice. In case if the recipient is asking you for invoice, you have to give it, even if it is for 1 rupee also. But in case if the recipient is unregistered, value of supply is less than 200, and recipient did not specifically ask you for any invoice, in that cases you need not give tax invoice. But by the end of the day, you have to identify all such cases where you have not given the tax invoice, and you have to give one consolidated revised tax invoice. Consolidated tax invoice you are required to give. What you are required to give, by the end of the day, you have to identify all those cases where you did not give the invoice, and you have to generate one consolidated tax invoice. So that is what 31 subsection 3 clause B says. So when you may not issue a tax invoice, all these three conditions: value of supply does not exceed 200, the recipient is unregistered and the recipient does not require such invoice. Here you have to be very careful. Even if the value is equal to 200 also, you are required to issue tax invoice mandatorily. Only when the value is less than 200. That means if it is equal to 200, am I required to issue tax invoice? Yes. The relaxation is given only when the value of supply is less than 200 rupees. And the recipient must be unregistered person and the recipient does not ask you to such invoice. Then 31 subsection 3 clause C is there, which is talking about a document called bill of supply. Sir, what is this bill of supply? Bill of supply is very simple. In case if you are a composition dealer, as we have seen in section number 10, composition dealer will not collect any tax from the recipient. Composition dealer, will he collect any tax from the recipient? The answer is no. So composition dealer will not collect any tax from the recipient, but he will make supplies. He has to issue some document. No. Can he give tax invoice? No. Why he can't give tax invoice? Because he's not collecting. No. So that's why he can't give tax invoice. So that's why what composition dealer will do, for composition dealer, instead of tax invoice, they have to give a document called bill of supply. Which document they will give? They will give a document called bill of supply. Similarly, let us say you are a regular person only, but you are making an exempt supply. You are a regular person only, but you are making an exempt supply. On exempt supplies also, you can't collect the tax. But for that exempt supplies, you are required to issue a document called bill of supply. So who will give bill of supply? Either a composition dealer or a regular registered person only whenever he is making an exempt supply. So either a composition dealer or a regular person making exempt supplies. On those supplies, since they can't collect the GST amount, so that's why what they will do in that circumstances, they will give bill of supply. And whatever these relaxations we have seen, if the recipient is unregistered, value of supply is less than 200, recipient did not ask for a bill, the same provisions will become applicable for bill of supply also. The same provisions will become applicable for bill of supply also. These provisions will become applicable for bill of supply also. And one more rule is there where they say that if your recipient is an unregistered person, to that person, you are making taxable supply as well as exempt supply. If the recipient is unregistered and to that unregistered person, if you are making a taxable supply as well as exempt supply, am I required to give two separate documents called tax invoice for taxable supply and for exempt supply bill of supply? Not required. So what they have told is if the recipient is unregistered, to the same person you are making a taxable supply as well as exempt supply, you can give one single document called invoice cum bill of supply. You can give one single document called invoice cum bill of supply. But this is only when the recipient is unregistered. If the recipient is registered, for taxable supply, you have to give it a separate tax invoice. For exempt supply, you have to give a separate bill of supply. But in case if the recipient is unregistered, you can give one single document invoice cum bill of supply. So whatever it is, this is what regarding 31 subsection 3 clause C. Then going ahead with one more document, there is something called receipt voucher. Sir, what is receipt voucher? Simply, if I have to put it, let us say you are a supplier, you have collected on advance. From the recipient, you have collected on advance. So whenever you are collecting an advance from the recipient, you are required to issue him a document called receipt voucher along with GST. You have to collect your advance along with GST. So you are required to issue something called a receipt voucher as a supplier whenever you have collected the advance. Now, after you have collected the advance, two things can happen. Number one, you will make a supply and invoice you will issue. After you have collected advance, after you have given receipt voucher, two things could happen. Number one, you can issue an invoice. You will make a supply, issue the invoice. Other case, what will happen is whatever advance you have collected, but thereafter supply did not materialize, you are giving refund. So you have collected advance for supply, but that supply did not take place. In that cases, you have to refund your advance or not? Yes. So in case if you are refunding the advance, whatever you have received because of not receiving the supply, then you have to give something called a refund voucher. Then you have to give something called refund voucher under 31 subsection 3 clause E. So 31 subsection 3 clause D says receipt voucher that is required to be given by the supplier whenever he is receiving the advance. Then we have 31 subsection 3 clause E. In case if you have received advance, got the receipt voucher, thereafter you are giving it as a refund, then you are required to give a document called refund voucher. Okay, so like that, two documents will be there, both we have covered. Then we have 31 subsection 3 clause F, which is talking about self-invoicing. Regarding that self-invoicing, I have already covered it in input tax credit chapter. The same marathon, when I was explaining you input tax credit chapter, there I have explained you about self-invoicing. So what is that self-invoicing? Let us say if there is a supplier, he is making some supplies to a recipient which are getting covered under RCM, where the recipient will discharge the amount of GST to the government. No. In that case, if the supplier is registered, he will give tax invoice. In case if the supplier is unregistered, supplier will not give any invoice. Recipient himself has to do a self-invoicing. Recipient himself has to do a self-invoicing under 31 subsection 3 clause F. Within 30 days, you are required to do it. Within 30 days of receiving the supply, you are required to issue that self-invoicing under 31(3)(f). But this will happen only when you are a recipient receiving the supply under reverse charge mechanism, and when the supplier is unregistered, then only you are required to issue a self-invoicing. Then there is one more thing called 31 subsection 3 clause G, which will be talking about payment voucher. This is also applicable in the case of RCM supplies only. If there is a supplier who made some supplies to the recipient which are getting covered under RCM. So whenever you are making the payment to the supplier, you are required to issue something called a payment voucher. You are required to issue something called a payment voucher. And this payment voucher will be given whether supplier is registered or unregistered, doesn't matter. Payment voucher will always be given by the recipient. But self-invoicing will be given only when the supplier is unregistered. So very important point I'm making here. Recipient of RCM supplies, he will give payment voucher in all cases, whether the supplier is registered, unregistered, in all cases he will give payment voucher. But recipient will generate self-invoicing only when the supplier is an unregistered person, then only he will generate the self-invoicing. Why? Because if the supplier is already registered, he himself will give you tax invoice. You are not required to generate the self-invoicing. Understood? So these are all the special documents under 31 subsection 3. They might test a MCQ out of this, so I don't want you to lose the marks on MCQs. That's why I have covered it. And one more concept which we are required to cover as a part of this tax invoices, one more favorite area for the examiner, is E-invoicing. There is a concept called E-invoicing. So what is that E-invoicing? So the government has identified few big suppliers, and they told that when these suppliers are making B2B supplies, it will not just be enough if you generate the invoice on your accounting software or something. You have to go to the e-invoice portal. They have given some e-invoicing portals. You have to go to that e-invoicing portal and generate something called an e-invoice. In case of some big suppliers, what the department told us, for big suppliers and all, first I will tell you what is that criteria. Who will be that big supplier? So the criteria is, just let me tell you whatever is relevant for you. So much of textual discussion will be there, but I will tell you what is important for the exam perspective. Yeah. If you read this first point, all registered businesses with aggregate turnover based on PAN in any preceding financial year, starting from 2017-18 onwards. Starting from the year, that means from the year GST has come into picture, from the year 2017-18 onwards, in any of the preceding financial year, if your turnover has exceeded 5 crores, not in all financial years, my dear students, even if in any of the financial year, even if in one financial year, starting from 2017-18, even if in one financial year, if your aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crores, then you are required to generate something called an e-invoicing. You are required to generate a document called e-invoicing. Sir, what is this e-invoicing? Where to generate? So we have something called e-invoice portal. Like this, these websites are there. You can visit any of this website and you have to generate something called a e-invoice. Sir, how that e-invoice will be generated? Simply first what will happen is, you will generate your normal invoice from your accounting software. You will generate normal invoice in the accounting software. Now you will go to this e-invoice portal. Once you go to the e-invoice portal, you will fill there one form, GST INV01. GST INV01, like that one form will be there, where it will ask you all the invoice related details. You have to upload, you have to enter all that information in GST INV01 at this portal, from any of this portal. And after you have entered all the details, the system, that portal will generate one document called e-invoice, and on that e-invoice there will be one unique number called invoice reference number will be there. One alphanumeric lengthy unique number will be there, invoice reference number. Along with that, on that e-invoice, one embedded QR code also will be there. IRN embedded QR code also will be there. So like that, one document you have to generate it. So first you will generate invoice from your accounting software. Then you will go to the e-invoice registration portal. There you will fill GST INV01 form. Thereafter, the system will generate one e-invoice which will contain one unique invoice reference number along with one embedded QR code. IRN embedded QR code also will be generated. So like that, one e-invoice you have to carry. Without this e-invoice, if you are a person to whom e-invoicing requirements will become applicable, but if you are not generating the e-invoice, then it will be a non-compliance. You will be liable for punishment. In case if you are a person whose aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crores in any of the preceding financial years starting from 17-18, but you are not generating the e-invoices, it will be a violation of the GST Act. You will be liable for punishment. So if you are a person whose aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crore rupees, just generating the invoice from your software alone will not be enough. You have to generate this e-invoice with IRN with embedded QR code. Able to understand? Clear and comfortable, everybody? Right. Sir, now, when this is this e-invoice required to be generated for each and every one, sir? No. It is only required to be generated for B2B supplies. E-invoicing is required to be generated only for what? B2B supplies. Only for B2B supplies. For B2C supplies, e-invoicing is not required. For B2C supplies, e-invoicing is not required. For B2B supplies, only e-invoicing is applicable. But however, for exports, sir, what about exports? Exports are also treated at par with exports are also treated as B2B supplies only. Even for exports also, you are required to generate the e-invoice. So all B2B supplies, including exports, you are required to generate the e-invoice. Sir, for B2C supplies, not applicable. Sir, in case of reverse charge supplies, in case if you are a recipient, receiving RCM supplies, for that are you required to generate e-invoice? No. But the supplier, whoever is making that supply, if his aggregate turnover exceeded 5 crore rupees, even on that RCM supplies also, supplier is required to generate the e-invoice. In case if I'm a supplier here, I'm making my aggregate turnover is more than 5 CR in any of the preceding financial year. I'm making an outward supply, but that supply is getting covered under RCM. I'm making an outward supply, but that supply is getting covered under RCM. My recipient will pay the GST. But who is required to generate e-invoice? As a supplier, I am required to generate e-invoice, not my recipient. And then for import of services, no. For import of services, there is no requirement of generating the e-invoice. Why? Because e-invoicing is applicable for your outward supplies, not for inward supplies. So import of goods also, it is not applicable. Then there are specified persons for whom this e-invoicing is exempted. There are some specified persons for whom e-invoicing is exempted. What do you mean by e-invoicing is exempted? There are some people which the government has identified and they told that, boss, even if your aggregate turnover exceeds a 5 CR in any of the preceding financial year, still we don't want you to generate any e-invoice. Sir, who are that lucky fellows who are not required to generate e-invoice? This list you have to remember, SEZ units. And one more important point, exemption is there only for SEZ units, not for SEZ developer. For SEZ developer, will e-invoicing be applicable? Yes. This anyhow I have given it at the below here, but very important, this you have to remember, only SEZ units are exempted from e-invoicing, not SEZ developer. Insurer, banking company, financial institution including NBFC, they are not required to generate the e-invoice even their aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 CR. GTA supplying services in relation to transportation of goods, GTA service provider is also not required to generate the e-invoice. Suppliers of passenger transportation services are also not required to generate the e-invoice. Person supplying services by admission of exhibition of cinematographic films in multiplex screens. Multiplex theaters are also not required to generate any e-invoice, and even a government department or a local authority. So these are the bunch of people who have been exempted from e-invoicing. What are they? Come on, this list you have to remember. They might ask a direct theory question on this aspect. So SEZ unit, insurer, banking company or financial institution including NBFC, GTA service provider, supplier of passenger transportation services, multiplex theaters and government department and a local entity. And these people who have been exempted from e-invoicing, they have to make a declaration on their invoice. They will give normal tax invoice. No, on that normal tax invoice, they have to give a declaration. What declaration they have to give? They have to give a declaration that even though our aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crores in any of the preceding financial year, but still we are exempted from generating e-invoice. That declaration, they have to generate it on the e-invoice. Now, all this, how e-invoice is generated, all that is not required. This is what the important content from the QR code. From the e-invoice. See, on the e-invoice, I told there will be a QR code, no? On the e-invoice, there will be a QR code, right? On the QR code, what information will be captured? I told you, once you generate the invoice from your accounting software, you go to the e-invoice portal, upload, fill INV01. Thereafter, e-invoice will be generated with QR code. I told you, no? What information will be captured in the QR code? In that QR code, it will capture GSTN of the supplier, GSTN of the recipient, invoice number, date of generation, invoice value, number of line items, HSN code, unique invoice reference number, and also date of generation of that invoice reference number. And one more important circular also they have told, sir, you told for B2B supplies, e-invoicing will become applicable, no? Let us say I am making a supply to a recipient who is registered. But that recipient has taken registration only under section number 51 for deducting TDS. Just now, as we have covered in the TDS chapter, we have seen the people who are required to get registered themselves under section number 51. Okay, sir, I am a registered person, I am a supplier. My aggregate turnover has exceeded 5 crores. Now you told for all my B2B supplies, I am required to generate an e-invoice. Let us say I am making a supply to a recipient who is registered. But that recipient has taken registration only for the purpose of deducting TDS under section number 51, but not for making any taxable supply. Will it also be treated as B2B supply? If it is treated as B2B supply, am I required to generate e-invoice on that also? Yes. Yes, that's what they say here. E-invoicing applies to supplies made by notified persons to even government departments, agencies, local authorities, and PSUs. You are registered only for the purpose of deduction of TDS under section number 51. Still, they will also be treated as registered persons only. Even though if the recipient is a person who has taken registration only for the purpose of deducting TDS under section number 51, they will also be treated as registered person. It will also be treated as B2B supply. On that supplies also e-invoices mandatorily required to be generated. Very important circular, important from the examination perspective. Clear? So this is what regarding e-invoicing. Then we have one more concept called dynamic QR code on B2B invoices, on B2C invoices, sorry. There is one more requirement called dynamic QR code. Sir, what is this dynamic QR code? See, dynamic QR code means, generally we have two kinds of QR code. Let us say, for example, if you go to a shop and buy some item, if you go to a shop and buy some item, and if you want to make payment through your UPI, they will show you one QR code. You will scan that QR code. Once you scan the QR code, amount you have to enter manually. Once you enter the amount manually, then only you can make the payment. So that is a static QR code. If I go and make the purchase at the shop, they will show me the same QR code. If some other person goes and makes the payment at that shop, they will also show the same QR code. That is a static QR code. That is a what? Static QR code. So which will not change for person to person. Every customer will scan the same QR code. You have to scan the QR code, enter the amount manually, and make the payment. Yes or no? This is not what I am talking about. There will be something called dynamic QR code. What is dynamic QR code? Which will be changing. This is something which you might have experienced already when you went to the DMart. When you went to DMart or any supermarket, you do the shopping and you want to make the payment using the QR code. You want to make an UPI payment at the counter. Now what will happen is that employee of that supermarket who is at that gate, who is at that counter, he will show you one QR code. He will have one digital device. He will have one digital device like card swiping machine, like that one device will be there. On that device, he will generate one QR code, and that QR code he will show it to you. Once you scan the QR code, amount will get automatically captured. You need not enter the amount manually. Just scan the QR code and that amount will get automatically shown in your device, and you have to just make the payment. That is what I call it as dynamic QR code. Now next person, if he comes to the counter and if he wants to make the payment once again, another customer wants to make the payment using UPI, the same QR code will not be shown to him. Now that employee at the counter, he will once again enter the amount, generate a fresh QR code. Now the next customer, when he scans that fresh QR code, whatever amount he has to pay, that will get reflected automatically. That is what we call it as a dynamic QR code. So GST Act has made it mandatory for a few suppliers to compulsorily generate that dynamic QR code. Sir, who are they? And also they are required to generate dynamic QR code only for B2C supplies, not for B2B supplies. They are required to generate dynamic QR code only for B2C supplies. Sir, which suppliers are required to generate the dynamic QR code? Those suppliers whose aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 2017-18 onwards exceeds 500 crores. For e-invoicing, normal 5 crores. But for dynamic QR code, only for those suppliers whose aggregate turnover has exceeded 500 crores in any preceding financial year starting from 2017-18. So any supplier whose aggregate turnover has exceeded that 500 crores limit in any of the preceding financial year starting from 2017-18, they are only required to generate the dynamic QR code. And once again, this dynamic QR code is only for B2C supplies, not for B2B supplies. Sir, what is the dynamic QR code for? Dynamic QR code is for payment. Payment related details will be captured. So I will tell you here what parameters will be captured in the dynamic QR code is, it will not capture the supply or related details. It will capture the payment details like supplier's GST number, supplier's UPI ID, pay's bank account number and IFSC, invoice number and invoice date, total invoice value, GST amount. So like that payment details it will capture. And here also they have given few exemptions for some suppliers. Some suppliers, even though their aggregate turnover has exceeded the applicable, has exceeded that 500 CR, still they are not required to generate the dynamic QR code. Who are that, sir? insurer, banking company or financial institution, GTA service provider, passenger transportation services, multiplex data. Same like e-invoices exemption list only. For e-invoice also we have exemption list, no? Out of that, 4 are same. Insurer, banking company, GTA, passenger transportation services, multiplex screen providers. These 4 people are common. But for e-invoicing, they say SEZ units, but that relaxation is not given here. SEZ units is not there for not there in the list of exemptions from dynamic QR code. But SEZ is there in the e-invoicing exemption. These 4 are common: insurer, GTA service provider, passenger transportation services, multiplex screens. These list is there even for e-invoicing exemption also, dynamic QR code exemption also. And here one more item has been added: OIDR service provider. Even OIDR services, online information database access and retrieval services, not important for CA Inter, that we will learn it at the CA final level. Even OIDR service provider is also exempted from dynamic QR code requirements. Clear? Right. So these are some bunch of things which are important from the exam perspective. Thereafter, one more thing I would like to cover from here. One more last thing which I would like to cover from here is section number 34, credit and debit notes. Credit and debit notes. This I will try to explain. After that, I will wind up the live for today. So debit note and credit note, this one short discussion we'll try to have. Credit note discussion is very, very important. So debit note and credit note. Sir, what is credit note? What is debit note? First, I will talk about debit note. Let us say, for example, you are a supplier. You made some 1 lakh worth of supply to the recipient, on which you have charged 18,000 rupees of GST also, and you have given one tax invoice charging that charging that invoice amount along with GST. So you have given tax invoice to the recipient. Now, because of some reason, as a supplier, you want to collect an extra amount. In addition to the invoice value, you want to collect something extra. Then you will issue a document called debit note. Sir, what could be the reasons? One reason I have already told you. Let us say this person did not make the payment within time and you want to collect the interest from him. So that interest also should be collected along with GST. So for that interest component, you will give debit note. On the other hand, let us say, for example, by mistake, you sent extra quantity. You did not realize it. You sent extra quantity. So you thought only 1,000 quantity has been sent. You gave 1 lakh worth of invoice. But later you realized that you have sent 1,100 quantity. Now you want to collect that extra amount for that extra 100 quantity. Now also what you will give? You will give something called a debit note. Or rate difference. By mistake you have applied wrong rate. So actually the product is 55 rupees. But by mistake you have charged him only 50 rupees. Later you have realized. Now you want to collect that extra 5 rupees. Here also you will give something called what? Debit note. So initially you made a supply, you gave a tax invoice charging GST, but you want to collect something extra from your recipient. Then you will issue a document called debit note. On the other hand, reverse is credit note. What is credit note? Let us say, for example, you are a supplier. You made him some supply amounting to 1 lakh rupees, charging 18,000 rupees of GST to the recipient. Now he is actually owing you 1 lakh 18,000 rupees, but you want to reduce that amount. Sir, why you can reduce the amount? It could be a discount, like we have seen in the value of supply chapter. It could be a post supply discount. That's why you want to reduce the amount, and you want to reduce the amount along with GST. Or this recipient is returning the goods. Those goods are not as per his specifications, or those goods are inferior. That's why he might be returning the goods to you. Then also you might be required to issue a document called credit note. Or he's not happy with the quality. The goods are little inferior. He told, sir, I asked you for premium quality, you send some normal quantity, I will not pay you that much amount, please give me discount. Then also you can give a credit note. So if I put it in very simple terms, if you have already given a tax invoice, but if you want to reduce that amount payable by your recipient along with GST also, you want to reduce it, then you will give a document called credit note. So we have understood what are the circumstances in which debit note will be given, what are the circumstances in which credit note has been given. Now this debit note you have to declare whenever you are giving a debit note. That debit note you have to declare in your GSTR1. When you declare the debit note in your GSTR1, what will happen? Your output tax liability will increase. You initially gave 1 lakh worth of supply, 80,000 rupees of GST you have collected. Later you are giving debit note amounting to 10,000 along with 1800 rupees of GST. This debit note supplier has to declare in his GSTR1. By declaring that debit note in the GSTR1, what will happen? Output tax liability will increase. Your liability will increase by 1800. And if you look at the recipient, on the basis of that debit note, recipient can claim that ITC. On the basis of debit note, recipient can claim that input tax credit. No issue. Sir, is there any time limit for declaring debit note? There is no time limit for declaring debit note. There is No time limit for declaring debit note. You can declare it at any time. Sir, I gave the debit note in the month of April, but I did not declare it in the month of April. No issue. Declare it in the May month. Sir, I did not declare it in the May month. You declare it in June month. Sir, like this, how long, sir? Anytime. Even after 10 years also, if you want to declare, you declare it. Because government will be happy. Because you are declaring and making the payment. No. Not just government will be happy. If you are making a delayed declaration of debit note, you have to pay that amount of GST on the debit note along with interest. How much duration you make the delay. For that duration, even you are liable to pay the interest also. For that duration, you will be liable to pay interest also. So for declaring the debit note, there is no time limit. For declaring the debit note, there is no time limit. Even you can come and declare after 10 years also. Government will be happy because you are coming and paying now by declaring debit note. In addition to being happy, they will also charge you interest. For that 10 years, they will charge you interest also. So there is no time limit for declaration of debit note. Now, when you declare credit note, what actually will happen? So if the supplier is declaring the credit note in his GSTR1, his output tax liability will be reduced. So let us say I initially gave 1 lakh worth of tax invoice. Thereafter, I am giving you 10,000 rupees of credit note along with 1800 rupees of GST also I am giving discount. So now this credit note I will declare in my GSTR1. If I declare this credit note in my GSTR1, my output tax liability will be reduced by 1800. And on the basis of this credit note, recipient is also required to reverse his ITC. Recipient is also required to reverse the ITC and supplier's output tax liability also will be reduced. Sir, is there any maximum time limit for declaring credit note? Yes. Is there any time limit for declaring the credit note in your GSTR1? Yes. Why yes? Because your government has to give you back the money. No. See, when the government has to get the money, no time limit. But by declaring the credit note, they have to give you back the money. So that's why they have put a time limit here. They have put a time limit here. If you want to declare your credit note in your GSTR1 and want to reduce your output tax liability, we will not allow it. For so long, we will have kept one time limit. Within that time limit, if you are coming and declaring the credit note, then only we will reduce your output tax liability. If you are not coming and declaring that credit note within the specified time limit, we will not reduce your output tax liability. Sir, what is that time limit? This time limit is very important. From here, the questions might come. So if you see here, so time limit for declaring the credit note. See here, the time limit is 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which such a supply was made. So what is it they're trying to say here? That credit note is required to be declared in the GSTR1 by 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which the supply was made or the date of furnishing of relevant annual return, whichever is earlier. So what they are trying to say, my dear students, what is the maximum time limit for declaration of credit note? Very important point. I'm going to make it here. So you are required to declare the credit note by 30th of November following the end of financial year in which the supply has taken place or date of furnishing of annual return. Whichever is earlier. Okay. Now I will give you one scenario. Let us say, for example, in the month of March 2025, I made a original supply. And in the month of March, I have given a tax invoice. Listen carefully. I have given a tax invoice amounting to 1 lakh rupees, 18,000 rupees of GST. This is the tax invoice. Supply has happened in the month of March and I have given tax invoice in the month of March. Now, regarding this tax invoice, I wanted to give a credit note. So what happened is maybe the supplier did not like some inferior, the recipient might have got some inferior quality of the goods. So that's why he's returning some goods back to me. So let us say he's returning that goods back to me in April 2025. In April 2025, I have given credit note. April 2025, I have given credit note. How much, sir? I have given credit note amounting to 10,000 rupees with 1800 rupees of GST. I have given credit note. Now, this credit note generally what should happen is, since I have given it in the month of April, no, what I will do while filing the return for the month of April, for April month return, I will file in May, no. So while filing the return for the month of May, so that is by May 20 and all, while I am filing the return, I have to declare it. So, sorry, by May 11, I have to declare in my GSTR1. So if I declare that credit note in my GSTR1, then what will happen? My output tax liability will get reduced by 1800 rupees. Sir, I did not do it in May. No issue. When you file the return for the month of May, no, then you try to do it. Sir, in May month return also, I did not declare it. No issue. You will file the return for the month of June, no, then you can do it. Sir, like this, how long, sir? They say 30th of November following the end of the financial year. 30th of November following the end of financial year or date of filing of annual return, whichever is earlier. Let us say annual return is filed on 31st of December year. Annual return is later. We will consider 30th of November is only earlier, just for example's sake. So 30th of November following the end of the financial year is only earlier. Let us put it that way. Now, what is the maximum time limit which is available for declaring this credit note in the GSTR1? So 30th of November following the end of the financial year. This credit note was issued in which year? 25-26. So 30th of November following the end of the financial year means what? 30th of November 2026. This credit note was given in the financial year 25-26, no? So this financial year is going to end on 31st of March 2026, no? 30th of November following the end of the financial year. That means 30th of November 2026. Till this time, I will have, this is the maximum time limit within which I am required to declare that credit note in my GSTR1. Correct or not? No. Incorrect. No. Not 30th of November 2026. Because if you see it here, they say 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which such a supply was made, not in which credit note was given. 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which supply was made, not 30th of November following the financial year in which a credit note is given. Yes or no? So if you go by that logic, this credit note is related to a supply. That supply has taken place in the month of what? March 2025. So supply was taken place in the financial year what? 24-25. 30th of November following the end of the financial year. Sir, what is 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which supply was made? 30th of November 2025 only. So maximum time limit within which you can declare this credit note is 30th of November 2025, not 30th of November 2026. Clear? Because they have told it in the section, the maximum time limit for declaring the credit note in your return is 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which supply has taken place, not in which the credit note has been given. So 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which supply relating to that credit note has taken place. So this supply has taken place. I know intentionally that you will commit mistake here. That's why I have chosen this example specifically. This supply has taken place in the financial year 2024-25. So you should not take 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which credit note was given. You have to take the 30th of November following the end of the financial year in which a supply has taken place. So that's why maximum time limit is going to be 30th of November 2025. By this date, you are maximum required to declare the credit note. Sir, what if I want to declare it after this year? No, you can't declare it. You can't declare it. Even if you declare it also, your output tax liability will not get reduced. Your output tax liability will not get reduced if you are declaring it after this date. Understood? Clear? So this is one such important point which you have to pay attention. So this is what in the tax invoice chapter I thought of covering. So this is where many a times MCQs are going to come from. So I don't want you to miss on this area. So that's why I have covered this point as well. And the initial discussion, whatever we had, 31 subsection 1, 31 subsection 2, 31 subsection 4, 31 subsection 5, time limit for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply of goods, continuous supply of services, normal supply of goods, normal supply of services. That is very important, but that is because that is from where time of supply chapter is taking its roots from. Okay, right. So this is what regarding tax invoice, debit and credit notes. So with this, I am winding up the live. So today we have done 3 chapters. Place of supply we have done, TDS and TCS we have done. Thereafter we have done this tax invoice, debit and credit notes. 3 important chapters we have done. So with this I am going to wind up for today. Right. Fine. So if you have been following our marathon series till now, so in the last week we have done a live series in which we have covered a bunch of chapters. And one common request which I have been getting from the students is to do the exemptions chapter, and also I have promised it. And also I have promised that I will definitely do the exemptions chapter revision. Yes, I will do it, and I will keep my promise. Don't worry about it. So I'm going to do now the quick revision of the exemptions chapter. See, this exemptions chapter is also going to be very important from the examination perspective. Definitely there will be a good amount of questions from this exemptions chapter. But the problem with that exemptions chapter is it's very voluminous. It's very voluminous. Why? Because even if you have a quick look, even if you look at the material, either you look at my material or you look at the ICS study material, you will find many pages. When compared with all other chapters, this chapter will be running for many pages. So this chapter is going to be very, very voluminous. That is what the main problem. So that's why many students will face a trouble. So that's what I'm going to do in this session. In this particular session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that conceptual exemptions. Not every exemption I might be able to cover it, but whatever is important from the examination perspective, whatever areas which are very much favorite for the examiner, very frequently they ask the questions from that category of exemptions. So that bunch of exemptions I'm going to pick, and those exemptions will be revising. Why? Because if I start revising each and every exemption, it will take a huge amount of time. So this is going to be a revision series. So that's why I will not be able to cover 100% of the exemptions. But what I will try to do is those areas which are conceptual, where there is a chance of twisting, where the students often get confused and they write the wrong answers, and also those areas which examiner very frequently test a question from, and which are very logical, which are where those areas where students commonly do the mistakes. So all that exemptions I have identified, and those exemptions I will be trying to quickly revise. So please do stay with me till the end. So till the time we complete this session, please do stay with me, please do watch it, and kindly do share it with your friends once this live become over. If at all, if some of your friends are unable to attend this live, so you suggest it to your friends as well. I will keep it posted on the YouTube as well. So please do suggest to your friends, so that you can also be a contributing factor in their conceptual clarity. So having said that, let me proceed further now. So here in this particular chapter, we are mainly going to cover about the services. What are the various services which have been exempted from the GST? Sir, are services only exempted from GST? Definitely not. Sir, are there any goods also which are exempted from GST? Yes, there are a bunch of goods which are also exempted from GST. If those goods are getting supplied, there is no requirement to make the payment of GST on that. Supplier will not collect any GST from you. Even as a recipient, you will not be able to pay GST under RCM. So like that, not just services, we have a good number of goods on which GST has been exempted. But goods you need not remember for your examination. Goods, there is nothing required to be remembered. So, but services we are required to learn, because for your CA intro, for your CMA intro, the questions are going to be from the services only. So we are going to concentrate on that services which have been exempted from the GST purview. And if you look from the material perspective, we have clubbed together exemptions belonging to one particular category into one single heading. We have clubbed all this activities, all those specific category depending on their industry. So you can keep it that way. Depending on the industry, we have clubbed together exemptions belonging to one particular category under one heading, and we'll be trying to cover each and every majority of that headings whatever we have here. So without any delay further, directly I'm going into the revision. No more discussion, no more general discussion and all. Directly we are going into the discussion now. So first category of exemptions which we are going to cover now is exemptions related to charitable and religious activities. So why the exemption for the charitable and religious activities? If you understand the logic here, these entities are wholly established for service orientation. That means for providing good for the society, for charitable activities, for advancement of the religion. These are non-profit oriented entities. So government thought we should not make them taxable. We have to give some exemptions. So that's why this entire sector which is into the business of this charitable and religious activities, there are a bunch of exemptions which have been given for them. So we'll try to cover one by one. First category of exemption here, services provided by an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act, and whatever activities they are doing which are falling under charitable activities. So what exemptions they are giving? In order to qualify for exemption under this entry, two conditions are required to be fulfilled. Number one, that entity must be registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. Sir, I am an entity, I am not registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. Will I become eligible for exemption? No. So to be eligible for exemption, condition number one, you must be an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. And even though you are an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act, not every activity whatever you are doing is exempted. No, not every activity is exempted. Whatever activity you are doing, if that is falling under charitable activities, whatever activities that you are doing, if it is falling under charitable activities, then only exempted. So now the question will come, sir, what will fall under charitable activities? They did not give you the scope. The act did not give you the scope to decide what is charitable, what is not charitable. The act did not give you to decide, give you scope to decide that. They are defining it. What will be considered as charitable activity? They have defined it. Only those activities will be considered charitable. Only those activities are exempted. So what are that activities, sir? So what are that activities which are considered as charitable activities? Number one, services by way of public health. So that also public health of whom, sir? Public health by way of care or counseling of terminally ill persons or persons with severe physical or mental disability. Those people who are very much terminally ill or who are having severe physical and mental disability. Those who are the persons who are afflicted with HIV or AIDS, and also persons addicted to dependence forming substances like rehabilitation centers and all. So those people who have been addicted to this dependence forming substance. So care or counseling in these areas. If you are not doing care or counseling, but if you are spreading public awareness among the people regarding preventive health, family planning, or prevention of HIV infection, only these healthcare services will be considered as charitable activities. Then advancement of religion, spirituality, or yoga. So if an entity is doing the activities by way of advancement of religion, spirituality, or yoga, that activities also will be considered as charitable activities and exemption will be there. Advancement of educational program or skill development. The activities relating to advancement of education. That means they are engaged in providing education or they are engaged in doing skill development. For whom, sir? Not for everyone. Only for abandoned, orphaned, or homeless children. That means the recipient, whoever is receiving that education or skill development services, must be an abandoned, orphaned, or homeless children, and physically or mentally abused and traumatized persons, prisoners, persons over the age of 65 years residing in the rural areas. This is one such point important for MCQs, favorite area for the examiner. So educational services, when provided to people over the age of 65 years, that too they must be residing in a rural area. So in case of educational facilities or skill development which is getting provided to persons should be over the age of 65 years and they must be residing in the rural area, then only it will fall under charitable activity. Then only exemption will be there. So education or skill development must be provided only to these persons. Then only they qualify as charitable activities. Then not just that, if that activity is relating to preservation of environment, including watershed, forest, wildlife, that means environmental protection related activities also will form part of charitable activities. Only these activities have been qualified as charitable activities, and if an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the income tax is providing these kind of charitable activities, then only exemption will be there. Okay, so here the important point for the examination is you have to remember what will fall under charitable activities. Then thereafter, sir, management of education, some points to clarify here. Sir, in case if a charitable institution is there, if it is running a private school where everybody can get where everybody can go and get the admission there, will it be exempted under this entry, sir? No, that might not get exempted under this entry, but we have a dedicated health, but we have a dedicated education services related exemption, there it might get covered. Then hostel accommodation provided by trust to students. There will be some trust and all. They will provide hostel accommodation to students. Did you see anywhere that is getting covered under charitable activities? The answer is no. So it doesn't fall under charitable activity. That means it will be taxable. Sir, if someone is conducting there will be some institutions which will conduct yoga camps, meditation camps. Sir, will they also be exempted? Let us say, for example, there is one entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. They are conducting a 5 days of yoga camp for which they are collecting some 30,000 from you. Where for that 30,000 they will take you to some other place where they will provide you accommodation. They will provide you food. They will provide you in that 5 days of yoga camp where residents will be taken, where your accommodation will be taken care, where your food will be taken care, and they will train you on yoga. Sir, for that yoga camp, they are collecting 30,000. No, will that be exempted? Yes, it will be exempted. Sir, what about meditation? Will it also be exempted? Meditation camp? Yes, exempted. But the condition is the primary objective should be advancement of yoga or religion or meditation. That means it's just for the namesake they are calling it yoga camp, but the primary objective is accommodation, recreation, etc. Then exemption will not become applicable. So for the exemption to become applicable, the primary objective should be advancement of yoga, religion, meditation, spirituality, whatever it is. Then, sir, what about hospitals managed by charitable institutions? For hospitals, anyhow, we have altogether different bunch of exemptions. There we will try to cover hospital related exemptions. Healthcare services related exemptions, we have a separate category. Next, sir, you told charitable institutions which they are providing outward supplies by way of charitable activities, they are exempted. No, if someone is providing input services to charitable institutions registered under 12AA or 12AB, on their input services also will there be exemption? No, on inputs they did not say anywhere there is an exemption. They are only talking about outward supplies provided by the charitable institutions by way of charitable activities. So they are giving relaxation for their outward supplies, not inward supplies of charitable institutions. Then what else? Services by a person by way of conduct of any religious ceremony, like let us say for example birth ceremony, marriage ceremony, death ceremony, or even any kind of puja, whatever it is. So any kind of religious ceremony provided by the person who is authorized to perform that activities by way of under the religious text. Like one priest is conducting and coming and doing some puja. So one pastor of the church is coming and conducting a marriage ceremony. So these kind of conduct of any religious ceremony is exempted. Then comes very important, this is also one such point important for examination, services provided by way of renting of precincts of a religious place. So there will be a religious place, in that religious place there will be so many premises. So if that renting of precincts of religious place which is meant for general public, and that renting of religious precincts must be done by an entity, that means who should be service provider? So if I put it this way, sir, what is the exemption they're talking about it here? What is the exemption they're talking about it here? The service, what they're saying is renting of religious precincts. Renting of religious precincts. Who should be supplier? So supplier is not every religious entity. They say that supplier must be that renting of precincts of religious premises must be done by an entity which is either registered under 12AA or 12AB, or a trust or institution registered under 1023C5 and 1023BBA. So the supplier of that renting of religious precincts must be registered under any of this act. What are they? 12AA, 12AB, 1023, what is it? 1023CV, 1023C5, sorry, 1023BBA. So supplier must be registered under any of this. That means that religious place must be registered under any of the sections of the Income Tax Act. So what are that sections? Section 12AA, 12AB, 1023C5 and 1023BBA. And who should be recipient? Recipient could be any person. Then that renting of religious precincts will be exempted, but subject to monetary limit. Subject to monetary limit. When the consideration for that renting of religious precincts is within that monetary limit, then only exempted. If the consideration for that renting of religious precincts has exceeded that monetary limit, then there will be no exemption. It will become taxable. Now you will get a doubt, sir, what is that monetary limit? So they are giving the monetary limit something like this in case of renting of rooms. So if you see here, however, nothing contained in this entry B of this exemption shall apply. That means whatever exemption they have given for renting of religious precincts, that exemption will not become applicable. When, sir, it is linked with the monetary limit. Sir, what is that monetary limit? In case of renting of rooms where the charges are 1000 rupees or more per day. When charges are 1000 rupees or more per day. If I put it in other way around, in case of room renting, the charges must be less than 1000. Even if it is 1000 per person per day, 1000 per day, then also it will be taxable. So the amount should be less than 1000. Even if it is 1000, then also what will happen, sir? Exemption will not become applicable. Then renting of premises like community halls, kalyana mandapam or open area and the like, where the charges are 10,000 rupees or more per day. That means inside that religious places there will be community halls and all. So where people will take it, on rent for conducting various ceremonies. So for that community halls and all to be exempted, the consideration must be less than 10,000 rupees per day. Per day, sir. In case if it is a shop, even under these religious institutes, there will also be shops in the close vicinity of that there will be some shops in the close vicinity of that religious place. That shops also will be given on rent. So when I say shop, if the rent of the shop is less than 10,000 rupees per month, then only exemption will become applicable. So these exemptions will become applicable subject to this monetary limit. If the consideration has exceeded the monetary limit, then the entire value will become taxable. There will be no exemption available. Okay, next. So thereafter, one more thing, services by specified organization in relation to religious pilgrimage. So some religious pilgrimages have also been exempted. Sir, is every religious pilgrimage is exempted? No, not every religious pilgrimage is exempted. So they have given that exemption only for two kinds of religious pilgrimage. One is Kailas Manasarovar Yatra and Hajj. Kailas Manasarovar Yatra and Hajj. And these also when provided by KMBN Kumon Mandal Vikas Nigam Limited, if they are conducting that religious pilgrimage of Kailas Manasarovar Yatra, or if that religious pilgrimage is Hajj performed by Hajj committee, then it will be exempted. Okay, so this is what regarding religious pilgrimages. Only two religious pilgrimages, that too by two specified organizations, they will only become exempted. Then thereafter, services by way of training or coaching. So if someone is providing the services by way of training and coaching, in what, sir? In case of services provided by way of training or coaching in recreational activities relating to art, culture, supplier must be individual. If there is an individual who is providing the services by way of training or coaching in recreational activities relating to arts or culture, supplier must be who? Individual. Then it will be exempted. On the other hand, if it is training or coaching in sports, then the supplier must be charitable entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. So recreation, this is also one area which is very important from the examination perspective. Very frequently they will ask the question. So when it comes to training or coaching, you should see in what area the training or coaching is getting provided. If the training or coaching is getting provided in arts or culture, supplier must be individual, then only exempted. In case if the training or coaching is provided in the sports, in case if the training or coaching is provided in sports, then the supplier must be an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. Then only it is exempted. Then only exemption will become applicable. Okay. So regarding the charitable activities, there is one more exemption. I would like to bring it here, which is actually given in government related things. That I will try to cover it here itself. So just listen carefully. Yes, see this. This point also I will cover it here. This is also more or less, even though it is given under government category, it is more or less related to charitable activity only. So that's why we'll try to cover this also here. Services provided by an old age home. So if someone is providing the services of running an old age home, and who is running that old age home? If that old age home is getting run by central government, state government, or if an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. So there is a old age home. So this old age home is getting run either by central government or state government, or a charitable entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. To whom, sir? To the residents. Sir, who should be recipient? Recipient is a resident, whoever is staying in that old age home. And that resident should be 60 years or more, greater than or equal to 60 years. And the consideration should be only up to 25,000. That means consideration should be less than or equal to 25,000 rupees per month per member, inclusive of charges for boarding, lodging and maintenance. So all charges included. If from the resident, whoever is there in that old age home, from them, if they are collecting a consideration of up to 25,000 rupees or less per month per member, then only exemption will become applicable. And one more condition, that old age home must be run by either central government, state government, or an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act, and the residents must be 60 years or more. Sir, what if a resident of 55 years is also staying in that old age home? Will that exemption become applicable? No. Exemption will not become applicable. So old age home, so there are so many conditions which are required to be fulfilled here to be eligible for exemption. Number one, the supplier should be central government, state government, or an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB of the Income Tax Act. Recipient, that means the resident of that old age home must be of 60 years or more, and the monthly consideration per person per month per member, the consideration should be up to 25,000 inclusive of all charges. Then only exemption will become applicable. Okay, so this is also one such important point, so I thought of covering it here itself. So with this, we are done with the charitable and religious activities which are exempted. Now we will come to next category of exemptions, which is agricultural related activities. So even on agricultural related activities or also there are so many exemptions. See, one point, if you remember, when we are seeing the registration chapter, I told that section number 23. In the section number 23, the government has given relaxation to a few people who have been exempted from taking registration. So who are that people who are exempted from taking registration? Number one, an agriculturist to the extent of supply of cultivation out of land. Do you guys remember this? So I have told you in the registration chapter while discussing section number 23, who are that category of the persons who have been exempted from taking registration. One such person who has been exempted from taking registration is an agriculturist to the extent of supply of produce out of cultivation of land. That person is exempted. So that means, what if you are an agriculturist, whatever supply you are doing out of cultivation of land, you are not required to pay any tax on it. You are not liable for registration. But this agriculturist will be receiving various services. This agriculturist, in relation to that agriculture, there will be so many input services which this agriculturist might be receiving. So on that also, will there be exemption? Yes, definitely there should be exemption. When on your outward supply itself, you are not liable to pay any GST. What is the purpose of imposing the GST on all that input services related to agriculture? So that's why what they have done is they have identified various kinds of input services related to that agriculture, and on that they have given relaxation. Sir, what and all are they? First, I will start with entry number 54. So what entry number 54 says? Services relating to cultivation of plants and rearing of all life forms of animals. So whatever services in relation to cultivation of plants and rearing of all life forms except horses. Not rearing of horses, rearing of all forms of animals except horses, and that you are rearing that animals either for food, fiber, fuel, raw material or other similar products or agricultural produce. So whatever services are there which are relating to cultivation of plants and rearing all forms of life of animals except horses, and you might be rearing that animals for the purpose of food, fiber, fuel, raw material or other similar products or agricultural produce. And what kind of services, sir? You are saying services in relation to cultivation of plants, services in relation to rearing of animals. What kind of services, sir? Now the list is coming. So what are that services, sir? The list of services are operations, agricultural operations directly relating to production of any agricultural produce, including cultivation, harvesting, threshing, plant protection, testing, exempted. So whatever operations which are directly related to that production of any agricultural produce, like someone is providing you services of cultivation, someone is providing you services of harvesting, someone is providing you services of threshing, someone is doing the services of plant protection or testing of the soil and all, exempted. And supply of farm labor. If someone is providing the services of providing the farm labor, you need labor to work in your farm. Someone is providing that supply of farm labor to you, exempted. Processes carried out at an agricultural farm. So at the agricultural farm, some process is getting carried out. Which process, sir? Like tending, pruning, cutting, harvesting, drying, cleaning, trimming, sun drying, fumigating, curing, sorting, grading, cooling, or bulk packaging, whatever you call it, whatever process which is getting carried out at an agricultural farm. But one condition is there, which should not alter the essential characteristics, which should not alter essential characteristics of agricultural produce, but makes it only marketable for primary market. So if you are doing any process at the farm, at the agricultural farm, you are doing any process to the extent it does not alter the essential characteristics of the agricultural produce, but makes it marketable only for the primary market, you can enjoy that exemption. Sir, let us say, for example, if I am converting the coconuts in the farm, I have a coconut plantation. So there I have coconuts. At the farm level, I am doing an activity whereby I am converting that coconut into coconut oil. Sir, will it be exempted? No. Why? Because it is changing the essential characteristic. So I am converting the tomatoes into ketchup. At the farm level only a process is happening. Sir, will that be exempted? No, it is changing the essential characteristic. Sir, I am converting that tea leaves into tea powder. So will it be exempted? No, because it is changing the essential characteristic. I am converting the potatoes into chips. Will it be exempted? No, it will not be exempted. Why? Because once again it is changing the essential characteristic. Clear? So that's what they try to say it here. To enjoy exemption, that process must be carried out in an agricultural farm, and which should not alter the essential characteristics of agricultural produce, but makes it only marketable for the primary market. Sir, you are saying if this process is carried at the farm level, which do not alter the essential characteristic, then we can enjoy exemption. What if this activity is not carried at the farm level? It is carried at some other place, then also we can enjoy exemption? Yes. If the activity is not getting carried at a farm level, can we still also enjoy exemption, sir? Yes, but where it is given, not here. In the entry number 55 they have given. So what entry number 55 says is carrying out an intermediate production process as a job work in relation to cultivation of plants and rearing of all life forms of animals except rearing of horses for food, fiber, fuel, raw material, or other similar products or agricultural produce. So what does this is? So what they're trying to say here is, if they're carrying out the processes at the agricultural farm, which do not alter the essential characteristic, exempted. Even if that activity is getting carried out as intermediate production process as a job worker, so either you are carrying it at the farm level or that is getting carried out as a intermediate production process as job work, it will be exempted. But the condition is, it should not alter the essential characteristic. Let us say, for example, you are sending the paddy to convert it into rice on a job work basis to a rice mill. You are sending paddy, you are an agriculturist, you are sending the paddy to a job worker where that paddy will be converted into rice. Will that be exempted? No. No. Sir, it is also in relation to cultivation. No. Yes, it is relating to cultivation of land, but here this activity which is getting carried out as a job work, changing the essential characteristics of an agricultural produce. So for this there is no exemption. Conversion of paddy into rice, for that there is no exemption because it changes the essential characteristic. Okay, so any process which is carried out at the farm level, or if it is getting carried out as an intermediate production process as the job work, to the extent it does not alter the essential characteristics of the agricultural produce, it is exempt. Not just that, once again, if you come back to entry number 54 here, renting or leasing of agro machinery or vacant land with or without a structure incidental to its use. If someone is providing the services of renting or leasing agricultural related machinery or vacant land with or without any structure incidental to its use, exempted. Then services relating to loading, unloading, packing, storage, or warehousing of the agricultural produce. Just now I have told what will fall under agricultural produce. So if someone is providing the services of loading, unloading, packing, storage, or warehousing of the agricultural produce, that services will be exempted. Sir, what about rice, sir? If someone is providing the services of loading, unloading, packing, storage, warehousing of rice, is rice an agricultural produce? No. So that's why exemption will not come here. Here rice will not get covered. But even though rice is not getting covered here, since many of the people in India depend on rice as their primary carbohydrate, so that's why what they have told is they have given separate entry for that. Services by way of loading, unloading, packing, storage, or warehousing of rice is also exempted. Now you all might get a doubt, sir, anyhow it will get covered here. No, they have already told loading, unloading, packing, storage, or warehousing of agricultural produce, it will get covered here. No, it will not get covered there. Why? Because rice is not an agricultural produce. Rice is not an agricultural produce, but considering the primary need, what they have told, services even by way of loading, unloading, packing, storage, or warehousing of rice also they have granted exemption. Understood? Next, agricultural extension services. If someone is providing the services of agricultural extension related services, where this they will set up some call centers where they will help the farmers on using the new technology and irrigation related facilities, that services we call them as agricultural extension services. For that also exemption has been granted. And also services provided by way of agricultural produce marketing committee or board, or services provided by a commission agent for sale or purchase of agricultural produce, exempted. APMC, services provided by APMC, services provided by any board, or services provided even by commission agents for sale or purchase of agricultural produce, that is also exempted. Understood? So this is what regarding entry number 54, entry number 55, and also we have covered entry number 24. Let us see what are other exemptions regarding agricultural related activities. So we'll see now 24A, we have services by way of warehousing of minor forest produce. So if minor forest produce is getting warehoused, like honey is a minor forest produce, so like that we have some minor forest produce like tamarind. So these things will fall under minor forest produce. Services provided by way of warehousing of the minor forest produce is exempted. Services by way of storage or warehousing of the cereals, pulses, fruits and vegetables, exempted. So if someone is providing the services of storage or warehousing of cereals, pulses, fruits and vegetables, that is also exempted. Not just that, one more last one, services by way of artificial insemination of livestock other than horses. So other than horses, if someone is providing the services of artificial insemination of horses, or artificial insemination of livestock other than horses. That means if someone is providing the services of artificial insemination of horses, it will be taxable. Other than horses, for other livestock, if services of artificial insemination is getting provided, they will be exempted. Understood? So this is what regarding agricultural related activities which have been exempted. So one more thing I would like to bring it here. One more thing was missed here, and you will be able to find something in other exemptions. If you come to other exemptions, there will be one point related to this. Just I would like to tell it to you. Just give me a minute. See here, one more activity, entry number 57 related to agriculture. One more activity regarding agriculture has been given here under other services. Services by way of pre-conditioning, pre-cooling, ripening, waxing, retail packing, labeling of the fruits and vegetables, which does not alter the essential characteristics of the said fruits or vegetables. So here one important point which you need to remember is, generally retail packaging will make it eligible for secondary market. But still, if someone is providing the services of retail packing, but it must be related to fruits and vegetables. So retail packaging of fruits and vegetables is also exempted. That they have specifically given under entry number 57. So this point you have to remember it. Sometimes they have tested on this point. So very important. Okay, so retail packaging of fruits and vegetables, which do not alter the essential characteristics or change the essential characteristics of the said fruits and vegetables, that is exempted. Okay. Now, so with this we are done with the agricultural related activities. Now we will go to the next category of exemptions and we'll try to cover it. We'll go to next category of exemptions. So now the next category of exemptions is going to be educational services. So as we all are aware, since education is also one of the basic requirement of any country, so even on educational services also they have given exemption. So when it comes to educational services, they have given exemption for their outward supplies also. They have given exemptions for inward supplies which is provided to educational institutions also. So they have identified educational institutions, and for that educational institutions they have given exemptions for their outward supplies. So these educational institutions, they provide various outward supplies. So they have given exemption for outward supplies made by educational institutions. Not just that, whoever is providing, if they are receiving any input services, if these education institutions are receiving input services, on that also they have given exemption. But before we talk about what are that output services which are exempted, what are that input services which are exempted, first we need to understand who is an education institution. Who is an education institution? So they have clearly defined who will fall under education institution. Let us try to understand who will exactly fall under that education institution. That is very, very important. Number one, education institution means an institution providing services by way of preschool education. If they are providing the services by way of preschool education and education up to higher secondary school. Sir, what is higher secondary school? Class 12. So starting from preschool education, like we have this nursery and all, right? So and even preschools also we have. So starting from preschool education up to class 12, basically schools and intermediate colleges up to class 12, whatever coaching institute, whatever education institutions are there, they will qualify as education institutions, or those institutions which are providing services by way of education as a part of curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by any law for the time being in force. Those education institutions which are providing the services by way of imparting education as a part of curriculum by which you will get a qualification recognized by law, which means what? Degree colleges, engineering colleges, MBBS colleges, or MCom, MBA universities, those will fall under education institution. So those institutions which are providing education as a part of the curriculum for which you will obtain the qualification recognized by law, degree colleges, MCom colleges, BCom colleges, engineering colleges, medical colleges will fall under here. Okay, and also you must be getting a qualification recognized by Indian law. If you are joining any college or university by which you are getting a qualification recognized by foreign law, it will not qualify as education institution for the purpose of this exemption. So you must be getting a qualification which is recognized by Indian law. Sir, CA Coaching Institute, will it fall under education institution? No. CA Coaching Institute will not fall under education institution. Why? Because you will not get any qualification recognized by law. Sir, NEET Coaching Center, will it fall under education institution? No. Because there also you are not getting any qualification recognized by law. And also MSET training centers, IIT coaching centers, will they fall under education institution? The answer is no. These coaching centers and coaching institutions will not fall under education institutions because you will not get any qualification recognized by law from that institute. Not just that, education as a part of approved occasional education courses. Sir, what are that approved occasional education courses? Approved occasional education courses, if I have to put it in simple terms, is polytechnic courses, private ITIs, public ITIs, government ITIs. So ITI services will be there. So ITIs will be there. Sir, what is an ITI? So what is an approved occasional education course? It is a course which is run by ITI or ITC, which is affiliated with NCVET. There is something called NCVET, and also there is something called SCVT. So there is an ITI or there is an ITC. They are running a course which is affiliated with either NCVET or SCVT in designated trades. There are some trades which are designated, and in that designated trades they are giving courses. So that will form part of approved occasional course. Or it is a modular employable skill course which is approved by NCVET by any person registered with Director General of Training, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. So like that, if these courses are getting run, they will also fall under approved occasional courses, and those institutes which are providing these approved occasional courses, they will also fall under educational institutions. Only these three. So first we have to understand who are education institutions, who will qualify as education institutions for the purpose of exemptions. So we have seen three will fall here. Number one, preschool education up to class 12. Thereafter, we have this degree colleges, BCom colleges, MBA colleges, medical colleges, etc. And also ITIs, ITCs, and also this modular employable skill program, they will all fall under education institutions. So we understood what is an education institution. Now, what kind of outward supplies are exempted? I have told you there are exemptions on outward supplies also. There are exemptions on inward supplies also. So first we will talk about outward supplies. Sir, what kind of outward supplies are exempted? So if you come here, what kind of outward supplies are exempted? Number one, any services provided by an education institution. So it is an outward supply. Services provided by an education institution to its students, faculty and staff. Any service here, there is no restriction. Any service which is provided by an education institutions to whom, sir? To its students, to its faculty, to its staff, exempted. No restriction here. Any service provided by education institution to its students, faculty and staff, exempted. Sir, tuition fees exempted, material fees exempted, uniform fees exempted, bus fees exempted. To the faculty, they are providing services by way of providing transportation and all, exempted. To the staff, they are providing services, exempted. Any service provided by the education institution, either to its staff, to its students, to its faculty, exempted. Not just that, services provided by an education institution by way of conduct of entrance examination. If an education institution is conducting an entrance examination for which they are collecting the consideration in the form of entrance fee, exempt. This is also outward supply. So clause A and AA both are talking about outward supplies. So any service provided to its students, faculty and staff, and services provided by way of conduct of entrance examination for which they are charging the consideration in the form of entrance fees, exempted. So these are the two outward services which have been exempted. Now let us talk about input services. Let us talk about input services. Sir, what is the exemption regarding input services? Let me try to summarize it in simple way. So there are 5 input services for which exemptions have been given. There are 5 input services for which exemption have been given. Services provided by way of transportation. So if someone is providing the services, let us say for example, a school needs transportation services. A school has to provide transportation to its faculty, students and staff. They don't have their own buses. So they went to some another person to provide that transportation facilities. So I'm having a bus, I'm owning a bus, I'm a bus driver. I'm providing transportation services to an education institution. I'm not talking about services provided by an education institution. I'm talking about services provided to an education institution. So if someone is providing the transportation services to the education institution, or if someone is providing the services of catering. So let me put it this way in a very simple manner. I will try to put it. So number 1, transportation services. Number 2, catering services. So let us say, for example, the school is providing the services of serving food to its students, faculty and staff. Now school does not have their own canteen. So what they have done is they have went to some caterer and they asked that caterer, you please provide catering services to us so that we can provide the food to our students, faculty and staff. So that catering services. Number 3, third condition, housekeeping services. Third category of input services is security, cleaning and housekeeping services performed in such education institution. So third one, housekeeping, security. Housekeeping and security related services, and they must be provided in premises. They must be provided in the premises of education institution. For that also there is an exemption. Then fourth one, sir, what is the fourth category of services? Services by way of conduct of services in relation to services relating to admission or conduct of an examination. So if someone is providing the services in relation to conduct of an examination, like let us say for example, an education institution wants to conduct an exam. For that they have availed the services of invigilators. For that they have availed the services of paper setters. For that they have availed the services of admit cards printing. For that they have availed the services of paper evaluators. So like that, conduct of examination, services in relation to admission or conduct of examination. Then last one, supply of online periodicals, online journals and periodicals. Online journals and periodicals. So like that, 5 input services which are provided to education institution is exempted. But all these services are not exempted for all kind of education institution. So as we all are aware, just now I have told, for the purpose of this entry, when I say education institution, it covers the 3 categories. So what are the 3 categories? Category 1 education institution, which is, what is category 1? Which is running up to class 12. Then we have category 2 education institution. What is category 2? Degree colleges or BCom colleges, medical colleges, engineering colleges. Thereafter we have category 3 education institution, approved occasional courses. So now which input service is exempted for which category of education institution? First I will talk about one such a service which is exempted for all the 3. One such a service, one such input service which is exempted for all the 3 is conduct of services in relation to entrance or conduct of an examination. Services in relation to entrance or conduct of an examination. If these input services are received by any education institution, be it category 1, be it category 2, be it category 3, doesn't matter. This input services provided to everybody is exempt. To everybody is exempt. Then when it comes to transportation, catering, housekeeping and housekeeping or security related services. See, if you see here, transportation is a basic need for category 1, because category 1 related education institutions, the students are very small kids and all, they can't come on their own. So that's why they need transportation. So that's why catering, even food also, catering related things, small kids, you have to serve them food and all. And even housekeeping, security, the small kids and all will make their school and campuses dirty, and also they need security. So that's why these are 3 input services: transportation, catering, housekeeping or security services when provided only in the premises. If housekeeping or security services is provided outside of the premises of education institution, then exemption will not become applicable. If an education institution, let us say for example, a school is conducting an annual day program at an auditorium, for that auditorium housekeeping and security services are provided, will there be exemption available? No exemption will become available. Housekeeping and security services must be provided within the premises of education institution, then only exemption will become applicable. So whatever it is, services in relation to transportation, catering, housekeeping or security, that exemption will become applicable only when these input services are provided to category 1 education institution. When these services are provided to category 2 education, category 3 education, exemption will not become applicable. exemption will not become applicable. Now, coming to the last category of input services, sir, supply of online journals and periodicals. Category 1 education institutions, small kids and all. Why do they need online periodicals here? Not required, no. So that's why there is no exemption here. And even if you take category 3, that is polytechnic colleges, ITA colleges and all, do they need any online educational journals? Not required. So that service will become exempted only when it is getting provided to category 2 education institutions. So for BCom colleges, BTech colleges, degree colleges, medical colleges, they might need requirement of online periodicals and journals. So that's why these input services, when provided to category 2 education institution, then there will be an exemption. Understood? Able to understand? So this is what you have to remember. Very important, this categorization you have to remember. So what are that input services which have been exempted? But not all input services are exempted for all kind of education institutions. Even they have identified a few services which are exempted for certain categories, a few services which are not exempted for certain categories of education institutions. So this thing you have to remember. So you need not copy this. This already I have given it in the material. So this already we have given it in the material. So if you go to the bottom, you will be able to find it, which input service will be exempted for which category of education institution. We have already clearly given here. You can come and refer to that. So this is what regarding input and output services which have been exempted. So few more things I would like to bring it to your attention here regarding this. So a few things which I have to tell you, some special points from which they will ask a question. IIMs. So IIMs, so in case of IIMs and all, IIMs are also education institutions. Yes, IIMs are also educational institutions. But IIMs runs two kinds of programs. One is long duration program where they will conduct one course which will go for more than 1 year, and for completing that course you will get a qualification recognized by law. Exempted. On the other hand, IIMs also will conduct some executive programs where there will be some 6 months program and all. If you complete that program in an IIM, you will not get any qualification recognized by law. You will just get a participation certificate. For that, exemption will not be applicable. So that one thing you have to remember. So long duration IIM programs which are for more than 1 year, GST is exempt. For short duration programs less than 1 year, for which you will get only participation certificate, there will be GST payable. For that, exemption will not be there. Okay, right. Next, what else? These boards, I will come to that later. Supply of food and all we have covered. Anganwadis, sir, do Anganwadis also enjoy us? Does Anganwadi schools also will come under education institutions? Yes. Why? Because they are also providing services by way of preschool education only. So Anganwadis will also come under category 1 education institution. And the point here is, so these Anganwadis will have a midday meal program. So under that midday meal program, they will provide the food to the students. Now these Anganwadis might receive catering services for providing that food under the midday meal program. So that input services of catering provided to Anganwadis, is it exempted or not? Yes, it is exempted. Next, sir, these engineering colleges and all, they will conduct campus placements. And for conducting that campus placement, if some company wants to participate in that campus placement, that college will collect some amount of money from that company to come and recruit the people. Sir, will that service be taxable? Yes, that service will be taxable. Why, sir? Why? Because I told that output services only when provided to its students, faculty and staff is exempted. Here the organization is providing the services not to students, faculty or staff, to a prospective employer. So that services will become taxable. Then so these are all some special cases. Maritime courses approved by DG Shipping, so Director General of Shipping, will that be exempted? Yes, they will also fall under education institution. They will also be exempted. Approved flying and training courses conducted by FTO, Flying Training Organization, approved by DGCA, Director General of Civil Aviation, will that be exempted? Yes, they will also be exempted. So these are some special points which you are required to remember. Thereafter, one more exemption we have regarding educational institutions, which is services provided by way of affiliation provided by center or state education boards or council or any other similar body by whatever name called to a school established, owned or controlled by central government, state government, union territory, local authority. Sir, what is it? So I will try to put it in very simple way. Important point. So what is that is, see, we have CBSE board, we have state boards also we have. Now if a school wants to provide education, let us say for example, if a school is providing education institution, if a school is providing education services whereby they are affiliated, if they want to conduct a CBSE affiliated school, CBSE course they have to run. So for that they need some license. For that they need some license. They have to approach the CBSE board and they will provide affiliation service. They will allow that school to be permitted. They will allow that school to be affiliated with CBSE board, for which they will receive a consideration. Now the CBSE board and SSE boards and all, these are not education institutions. They are providing the services by way of affiliation services provided to the school for which they are receiving the consideration. Sir, for that, will there be exemption applicable? No, exemption is not applicable. That is a supply of service. On that, GST will be payable. But they have given exemption in one case: if the recipient, if the school which is getting that affiliation services, if the recipient is a school which is under the control of central government, state government, union territory, local authority, government entity or government authority, then exemption will be there. So if these boards, if the central or state boards, if they are providing the affiliation services to schools which are under the control of the government, that only will become exempted. On the other hand, if a private school is getting affiliation services from CBSE board or SSE board for the purpose of running their schools and all, for that exemption will not become applicable. On that, GST will become applicable. Now, few more points here. Sir, this CBSE boards, SSE boards, similarly we have this boards which will conduct MCET examination, NEET examination and all. They will also be conducted by some boards. Now they are providing the services by way of conduct of entrance examination or conduct of examination like class 10 examination, class 12 examination they will conduct. So these boards like CBSE, SSE or some boards which are conducting MCET exam or this MBA related entrance examination, like that many boards are there which will collect the fees and conduct the entrance examination. But these are not education institutions, no sir. For the purpose of this entry, for the purpose of exemption, education institution means only three kinds of organizations which are running preschool up to class 12 or which are running a course which is by which you will get a qualification recognized by law. And one more last thing is what? The third thing is which are running approved occasional courses. But these boards and all will not fall under education institutions, no sir. So they will collect some fees and conduct this entrance examinations too. So on that, generally GST should come, right? Yes, but they have given one clarification. They have told that for the purpose of this exemption, in order to make that exemption extended to these entities also, for the limited purpose of conducting the entrance examination, they will also be considered equivalent to education institutions and they can also enjoy the exemption. Okay, so if I try to give once again overall conceptual view, these educational boards and all, they perform various kinds of services. They are not practically education institutions, but only for the limited purpose of conducting the examination, for which they will collect the fees in the form of for which they will collect the exam fees in the form of consideration in the form of entrance fee or etc. For that limited purpose alone, they will be considered as education institution and they can enjoy exemption for conducting of this entrance examination. And similarly, if they are getting any input services in relation to that conduct of entrance examination like paper setter, valuer, invigilator, etc., even on that input services also they can enjoy exemption. Other services provided by these boards and all will become taxable, except this one. If they are providing affiliation services to a school which is under the control of the government, then also they can enjoy exemption. Okay, right. So comprehensively I have covered the education related exemptions. Now we will go to the next category of exemptions. We will talk about healthcare services. What are the exemptions which are applicable for healthcare services, that we will try to do. So what are the services which have been exempted? Healthcare service, as we all are aware, education and health both are very much important, right? So that's why, like the way they have offered, see I have lost the power and all, that's why the light is little dim, so I'm running on power backup. So light is little dim. I hope it is manageable. It might not be creating so much trouble. It could be little manageable, right? So whatever it is, even on healthcare services, since healthcare is also very much important for the people of our country, this healthcare also should not become very costly. It is already costly, but it should not become even more costly by imposing the GST on it. So that's why the government has given relaxation for healthcare services also. Now let us try to understand what are that healthcare services which have been exempted. First, if you see here, services by a veterinary clinic in relation to healthcare of animals and birds. See the priority of the government here. See, the government is giving relaxation. The government is exempting even healthcare services provided to human beings also. But they are telling it in entry number 74. But well in advance, in entry number 46, first they are having concern for the animals. So, services provided by veterinary clinics in relation to healthcare of animals or birds, exempted. So if you are having any pets or if you are having any animals, if you are growing any animals for the purpose of like food, fiber, etc., like you are growing buffaloes and all, that buffalo has become sick, you took it to the veterinary clinic. For that they will charge you some consideration and do the treatment for that buffalo and all. Sir, will that be exempted? Yes, it will be exempted. So you are having dogs, cats, etc., they got sick, you took to them to the veterinary clinic and they treated and they charged consideration. Exempted? Yes, exempted. So services by a veterinary clinic in relation to health care of animals or birds, which is exempted. Then apart from that, services by way of, now let us come to the human beings. Services provided by way of healthcare services, which is provided either by a clinical establishment or authorized medical practitioner or paramedics, is exempted. So now what they are saying, healthcare services are exempted. Now you have to know what do you mean by healthcare services. It is, they did not leave it to your choice to decide what is healthcare service, what is not a healthcare service. They are defining what we will consider it as healthcare services. They are defining it, and those healthcare services also only when provided either by clinical establishment or authorized medical practitioner or paramedics. So when exemption will become applicable, number one, it should be healthcare service, and it must be provided either by clinical establishment or authorized medical practitioner or paramedics. Then only exemption will become applicable. So now we have to understand what do you mean by healthcare service, who is authorized medical practitioner, what is a clinical establishment, and what is a paramedic, who is a paramedic. So first we will address what will fall under healthcare services. So if you see here, they say that any service by way of diagnosis, treatment or care. Three aspects they are covering. So services in relation to diagnosis. Sir, what is diagnosis? Finding out the problem. So that's here what will come, like for example, services provided by this lab centers, pathological labs, x-rays, or this scanning related services, exempted. Whether these diagnosis services are getting provided within the hospital by way of a separate lab, or if a lab is located outside, some third party lab is there which is conducting these diagnosis services, exempt. Even if that pathological or diagnosis services, that doing of the blood test, x-rays, scannings and all, if they are provided either by the hospital itself, exempted, or there is one lab, there is one pathological private lab which is not connected with any hospital, so if you go to that lab and get your blood test done, x-ray done, scanning done, then also it is exempted. So services in relation to diagnosis, thereafter treatment. Once a diagnosis is happening, they will find out the root cause. Thereafter they will treat you. So services provided by way of treatment is also exempted. Thereafter care. So once you are treated, you need care. That's why you will be admitted to the hospital. You will be under the doctor's observation and all. That care is also exempted. So services by way of diagnosis, treatment or care. For what, sir? For any injury, for any illness, you have become ill, or for any injury or any deformity or any abnormality or even pregnancy, that too in recognized system of medicine in India. So that diagnosis, that treatment, that care must be under recognized system of India. Sir, what is recognized system of India? What is recognized system of India? Sir, recognized medical systems are these only: allopathy, yoga, naturopathy, Ayurveda, homeopathy, Siddha, Unani, or any other system of medicines recognized by central government. So this list you have to remember. These are only recognized medical systems. What are they? Allopathy, yoga, naturopathy, Ayurveda, homeopathy, Siddha, Unani. These are only recognized medical systems in India. If in these recognized medical systems in India, if someone is providing the services of diagnosis, treatment or care, then only exemption will be there. Okay. Next. So next one. It includes the services by way of transportation of patient to and from the clinical establishment, not just diagnosis, treatment or care. Even the services relating to transportation of that patient, that if the patient is getting picked up from his home to the hospital or from hospital to home, that transportation of the patient will happen. No, that is also exempted. However, in the healthcare services specifically, they are excluding certain items. They are saying specifically some things will not get covered in the healthcare services. What are that specific things which will not get covered under healthcare services? It does not include hair transplantation. No, hair transplantation, no, we will not consider as healthcare service. Even cosmetic or plastic surgery, that also will not consider as healthcare services, except if you are undertaking that cosmetic or plastic surgery to restore or reconstruct any anatomy or functions of body affected due to congenital defects, development abnormalities, injury or trauma. So let us say, for example, if an actor is there, if that actor is undergoing cosmetic surgery to look better, so will that be healthcare service? No. Or let us say a person has been met with an accident. Because of that accident, his nose was broken, his nose was twisted. Because of this, he is unable to breathe. So now a cosmetic surgery, a plastic surgery has been performed to restore his nose so that he can breathe properly. Will that fall under healthcare service? Yes. Why? Because here plastic surgery has been conducted to restore some abnormality. Sometimes the kids will be born with left cleft lip or something, they will say. So they will have some abnormality on their nose or lips. To fix that, plastic surgery will be conducted. Will that form under health? Will that form part of healthcare services? Yes, 100% yes, because it has been performed to fix some congenital defect. Okay, so what will be excluded from healthcare services? Number one, hair transplantation. Number two, cosmetic or plastic surgery, except when it has been done to reconstruct or restore any abnormality of a body or functions of a body which is affected due to congenital defects, development abnormalities, injury, or trauma. Okay, so we have understood what is healthcare services. Not healthcare services provided by everybody is exempt. They say that healthcare services only when provided by clinical establishment or an authorized medical practitioner or paramedics, then only they will be exempted. They did not say healthcare service just like that. They said healthcare service will be exempted only when provided by clinical establishment, authorized medical practitioner, or a paramedic. Then only exemption will become applicable. Now you will get a doubt. Who is that? What do you mean by clinical establishment? Clinical establishment means any hospital, nursing home, clinical sanatorium, or any other institution, whatever name you want to give it, which is providing the services of diagnosis, treatment, or care, that too in a recognized medical system of India. That too in a recognized medical system of India, like any clinic, any hospital, whatever name you want to give it. And it also includes a place established as an independent entity or as a part of an establishment to carry out diagnostic or investigative services, pathological labs, as I have told. So whether these pathological labs are included in the hospital or they are running it as an independent unit, they will also fall under authorized medical. They will also fall under clinical establishment. Now, who is authorized medical practitioner? These medical practitioner who is registered with any of the councils of recognized system of medicine in India and who is having a requisite qualification to practice. Then paramedic. Sir, who is paramedic, sir? They are trained healthcare professionals like trained nurses, physiotherapists, technicians, lab assistants. They will also form part of, they are forming part of paramedics. If these people are employed with the hospital, if this paramedic, if a nurse is getting, if a nurse is joining as an employee in a hospital, then that nurse is providing the services as an employee to the employer, anyhow not a supply at all. In case if there are some nurses which are not appointed with any hospital, they are providing independent services, then also it is exempt because it is a healthcare service provided by a paramedic. So if these paramedics are appointed in an hospital as an employee, then they are providing the services in the capacity of an employee to the employer under the contract of employment, not a supply under Schedule 3. In case if they are not appointed in the hospital as an employee, they are independent parties. If there is a physiotherapist who is an independent person, he will come to you and provide you physiotherapy services, exempted. Okay, right. Next. However, they have told one thing here. This exemption will not become applicable. This exemption of healthcare services provided by a clinical establishment or authorized medical practitioner or paramedic, generally exempted, no. But this exemption will not become applicable. Nothing in this entry shall apply. To whom, sir? To the services provided by a clinical establishment by way of providing room. If they are renting out the rooms other than ICU, other than CCU, other than ICCU, other than NICU, if they are having a room charges of 5,000 rupees per day to a person receiving the healthcare services. In case if in a hospital they are giving you a room on rent, for which if they are charging you consideration more than 5,000 rupees per day, since you are able to afford more fees, more rent, if you are able to pay more than 5,000 rupees of rent per day in a hospital, definitely you will be able to afford the GST also. That's why they have not given exemption. However, if that room is at CCU, ICCU, NICU, or ICU, in that cases, even if the room rent is more than 5,000 rupees, then there is no taxability, then it is still exempted. Other than ICU, other than ICCU, other than NICU, if a normal general room has been given to you on rent for more than 5,000 rupees per day, then exemption will not become applicable. And services provided by way of transportation of patient in an ambulance. So they have already covered it, no. Anyhow, that is getting covered under healthcare services, no. You told while defining healthcare services, it also includes transportation of patients. Anyhow, it is getting covered here, no. No. So why they have separately included here is, in the first point, healthcare services, that means transportation of patients only when provided by clinical establishment, authorized medical practitioner, or paramedic, they will only be exempted. Now there will be some individual persons also who will buy a van, convert it into ambulance, and they independently provide the services of transportation of patients. Yes or no? They are not a clinical establishment. They are not an authorized medical practitioner. They are also not a paramedic. Some individual persons provide ambulance services. For that also will there be exemption? Yes, they all will get covered here. Okay. So in the first point, ambulance services only when provided by clinical establishment, authorized medical practitioner, or paramedics, then only exempted. But in the B point, they have extended the scope. So services by way of transportation of patient in an ambulance provided by anybody, not just clinical establishment, other authorized medical practitioner, or paramedics. These services provided by everybody will be exempted. Understood? Clear? So this is what regarding healthcare services. Now we will try to proceed ahead and try to understand remaining category of exemptions. So remaining some more important exemptions are there that I will try to explain with the help of some charts. Okay. So legal services related exemptions is I have already covered it along with the RCM chapter. If you did not watch that RCM related revision, I would suggest you to go and refer to that RCM related revision video. There, when it comes to legal services provided by advocates, senior advocate or form of advocates, along with arbitral tribunal, when RCM will become applicable, when exemption will become applicable, that I have already revised it in the charge of GST chapter. You please do go back and revisit it. So now a few things which I would like to concentrate here is there are some exemptions which are given for passenger transportation services. And also, there are some exemptions which are given for goods transportation services. There are some exemptions which are given for passenger transportation services. There are some exemptions given for goods transportation services also. We will try to cover both of them now. First, we will talk about passenger transportation services. See, passenger transportation services is very important or not. Basic services, the movement of the people is required from one place to another place. So passenger transportation services are going to be very, very important. So that's why there are some exemptions for passenger transportation services. Sir, what are they? First, there are different modes of transportation. Passenger transportation can happen by way of air. Passenger transportation can happen by way of railways. Passenger transportation can happen by way of water. And also passenger transportation can happen by way of road. These are the different modes of transportation of passengers. Now, for these different modes of transportation, there are some exemptions given. First, we will talk about air. Services of passenger transportation provided by way of air. Sir, when it will become exempted? It will become exempted only when the passenger is either embarking or terminating. Sir, what is embarking? Either you are getting into the aircraft or you are terminating. That means you are getting down from the aircraft. So if a passenger is either embarking or terminating from any of these places. So if you are either embarking, either you are boarding or you are terminating your journey from any of these places, that too when you are traveling in an economy class, it will be exempted. Sir, what are that places where from which if I am embarking or terminating, I will enjoy exemption? So if you are embarking or terminating from Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, state of Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, and a place called Bagdodra in West Bengal. And a place called Bagdodra in West Bengal. So if you are either embarking or terminating your journey, that too you must be traveling in an economy class, not business class. So from any of these places in these states, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, and a place called Bagdodra in West Bengal, not from entire West Bengal state, from a place called Bagdodra in West Bengal. If you are either embarking or terminating your journey, that too that journey should be happening by way of economy class, you can enjoy the exemption. Then it will become exempted. Similarly, one more exemption has also been given by way of passenger transportation services provided by way of air. So in case if the passenger transportation services are provided to central government, who is recipient? Central government. By way of provided to central government, where passengers are either embarking or terminating at a RCS airport, regional connectivity scheme, at an airport covered under regional connectivity scheme, where the consideration they are getting it in the form of viability gap funding for up to 3 years from the commencement of operations, then they will be exempt. Sir, what they are trying to say, let us say for example, there are some airports which are located in remote areas. So there are some airports which are located in remote areas which are connected under RCS scheme. The government has brought some scheme called RCS, regional connectivity scheme. So there is one area where there is a airport the government has newly constructed, but there will be no float. Many passengers will not be traveling at that locations. So airline companies will not be interested to run their flights at that location. So that's why for that airline companies, government has given you one option. You do one thing, you run the flights from that port which are connected under RCS scheme. But you charge lower amount. Let us say you charge only 1,000 rupees. But airline company will not agree. Sir, why I will charge 1,000 rupees for a flight ticket? I will not be able to recover my cost also. Then government says, don't worry, dear airline company, you run your flights at an airport which is connected under RCS scheme. You charge less amount of consideration from the passengers, but we will compensate you. We will compensate you. Government will agree to compensate them in the form of viability gap funding. So let us say, for example, they're giving some 2,000 rupees for every service, for every passenger which is getting embarking or terminating from that RCS airport. So that 2,000 rupees of consideration which is provided by the government to the airline company for running a flight of passengers either embarking or terminating at an airport connected under RCS scheme. So that viability gap funding is exempted. But however, this exemption will become applicable only up to 3 years from the commencement of operations. That exemption will become applicable only up to 3 years from the commencement of operations at that RCS airport. So more about this, I have explained it in a detailed manner in our regular classes. I can't elaborate it further. So I'm revising it in an overall manner. Just refer to the material. I have given what is RCS scheme and all, so that you can refer it once. So these are the only exemptions available for passenger transportation services happening by way of air. Now, one more important mode of transportation of passengers, even in today, the cheapest and many people rely on this mode of transportation, which is by way of railways. So when the passenger transportation services are provided by way of railways, there also exemptions are there. But when exempted, so metro, monorail, tramway, always exempt. The services provided by way of transportation of passengers by way of metro, monorail, tramway, exempt. Now, if you come to the usual railways, if you come, the passenger transportation services provided by the railways in either first class or air conditioned coach, it will always become taxable. If passenger transportation services are provided by Indian Railways by way of either in first class or air conditioned coach, they will be taxable. If the transportation of passengers is provided in other modes, not first class, not air conditioned coach, then it will be exempt. Okay, so these are the exemptions available for transportation of passengers by way of rail. Now, transportation of passengers by way of water. In case if the passenger transportation services is provided by way of water, then when it will become exempted. If it is inland waterways, exempt. Whatever may be the purpose, for tourism purpose, for non-tourism purpose, doesn't matter. If the passenger transportation services are happening by way of inland waterways, exempt. Purpose doesn't matter there. Is that passenger transportation is for tourism purposes, for non-tourism purposes, all that doesn't matter. So passenger transportation services by water, that too by way of inland waterways, always exempt. No GST on that. Sir, what about others? That means not by way of inland waterways. Through ocean, if the transportation of passengers is happening. If it is public transport, which is predominantly not for tourism purposes. Let us say, for example, there is a vessel which is coming from Chennai to Vizag, that too by way of ocean, not by way of inland waterways. So in that vessel, if passenger transportation services are getting provided, but that should be for public transport, not for tourism purposes, then it will be exempt. What if it is a cruise ship? That cruise ship is predominantly for tourism purposes, then exemption will not become applicable. So if it is a public transport which is not predominantly for tourism purposes, then exemption will be there. So if for any other purposes, so if it is not for public transport, as I've told, if it is not for public transport, that means it will be for tourism purposes, conducted tour and all, then it will become taxable. So this is what exemption available for passenger transportation services provided by way of water. Inland waterways, always exempted. Others, if it is for public transport, exempt. If it is not for public transport, then it will be taxable. Next, now come to the road. Services by way of passenger transportation services by way of road. So then when exemption will become applicable. So in case if the passenger transportation services are happening by way of a road, that too by way of a contract carriage, that too non-air conditioned contract carriage. If the passenger transportation services are getting provided by way of road, by way of a contract carriage, which is non-air conditioned, and that too not for conducted tour, not for tourism purposes, not for hire, not for charter. So non-air conditioned contract carriage, that too not for tour, tourism, hire or charter. Or if it is getting provided by way of stage carrier, that too a non-air conditioned stage carrier. And also if it is provided by way of metered cabs and also auto rickshaw, including e-rickshaw, then we need to check. So first, you follow the same order here. What is contract carriage? What is stage carrier? What is metered cab? What is auto rickshaw? Definitions I have given it in the material. You please refer to it once. So in case if the passenger transportation services are getting provided by way of road, and if it is getting provided by way of a non-air conditioned contract carriage, if it is provided by way of a non-air conditioned stage carrier, if it is provided by way of a metered cab, or if it is provided by way of a auto rickshaw, including e-rickshaw, then we need to check, is this passenger transportation services, is it getting provided through e-commerce operator like Ola, Uber, Rapido? Then it will become taxable. And it will get covered under 9 subsection 5 also. E-commerce operator itself will discharge the amount of GST. If it is not getting provided through e-commerce operator, then they will be exempted. If they are not getting provided through e-commerce operator, then it will be exempted. Okay, next. Sir, what if it is a radio taxi? If the passenger transportation services are getting provided by way of radio taxi, whether through e-commerce operator, not through e-commerce operator, doesn't matter, always it will be taxable. Others. Apart from this, if any others are there. Sir, what is others? Air conditioned contract carriage, air conditioned stage carrier. So like that, whatever is not getting covered in the first two cases, they will always become taxable. So these road related points are very important. So in case of passenger transportation services by road, first you should see, is it falling under this first category, non-air conditioned contract carriage, non-air conditioned stage carrier, metered cabs and auto rickshaw including e-rickshaw. then you have to see whether these services are getting provided through e-commerce operator. If it is provided through e-commerce operator, taxable under 9 subsection 5. If it is not provided through e-commerce operator, it will be exempt. Radio taxes, always exempt. Always taxable, sorry. Whether through e-commerce operator, not through e-commerce operator, radio taxes are always taxable. Others, if anything others is there, then also it will become taxable. Understood? So this is what regarding passenger transportation services. Even for goods transportations also, even for services provided by way of goods transportation also, there are some exemptions available. So what are that exemptions available for goods transportation services? Here also we will try to see once. So here also services, this goods transportation services can be either provided by way of air, by water, by rail, or by road. These are different modes of transportation of goods. Just give me 1 minute. I'll just be back. I have to turn off the fan and come. So just give me 1 minute. Right, so concentrate now. So when exemption will become applicable for goods transportation services, we'll have a quick look now. And as I was saying, the goods transportation can happen by way of air, by way of water, by rail, by road. Let us see when exempted, when taxable. So when it comes to goods transportation services by way of air, in case if the goods transportation services are getting provided by way of air, will always be taxable. Always taxable. So transportation of goods by way of air, taxable. Sir, what about transportation of goods by way of water? Then I need to check, is it getting transported by way of inland waterways? Are the goods getting transported through inland waterways? Any goods, if they are getting transported by way of inland waterways, always exempt. Always exempt. There is one small star mark there. We'll come back to that later. So services provided by way of transportation of goods by water, that to inland waterways, whatever may be the goods, wherever or whatever may be the purpose. So transportation of goods by way of inland waterways is exempt. Others, that means if the transportation of goods is happening by way of water, not by inland waterways, through ocean. Through ocean, if the transportation of goods is happening, then if the goods which are getting transported falls under random category. If the goods are getting transported by way of water, not through inland waterways, then we need to check whether those goods which are getting transported falls under random category. Sir, what is random? Random is actually a mnemonic to remember the goods. So R stands for relief materials for victims, calamities, man-made disasters and accidents. That means relief material. A is for agricultural produce. N, newspapers or magazines, that too only registered newspapers or magazines. D for defense military equipment. O, organic manure. M for milk, salt, food grains. So random. So in case if the transportation of goods is happening by other than inland waterways, now you need to check, are the goods getting transported under this random category? So what is random? Relief material, agricultural produce, newspapers or magazines, defense or military equipment, organic manure, milk, salt, food grains. Yes, the goods which are getting transported are falling under random category, exempt. The goods are getting falling under random category, exempt. Whereas others, no sir, they are not random. Some other goods are getting transported by way of waterways other than inland waterways. That will become taxable. That will become taxable. So this is what regarding services of transportation of goods by way of water. Now, services of transportation of goods by rail. If the goods are getting transported by way of rail, then when it will be exempted. So here also we need to check, are the goods falling under random category? Are the goods falling under random category? Yes, the goods are falling under random category, exempt. I have already told you what will fall under random category. No sir, if the goods are not falling under random category, then it will become taxable. Now comes the most important part here. In case if the goods are getting transported by way of road, the good transportation services are happening by way of road, then what will happen? Then what will happen is we need to check, is that transportation of goods happening by way of road is by a GTA? If it is GTA, yes, mostly it is taxable, mostly RCM, subjected to some exemptions. Or if the transportation of goods is happening by way of courier agency, then also it will become taxable. Is it from others? That means transportation of goods is happening by other than goods transport agency, by other than courier agency. If someone else like an individual truck operator, individual travel operator, individual tempo operator, if they are providing the services of transportation of goods by way of road, then it will be exempt. There are some star marks there, here and there we have some star marks. I will try to cover. At the bottom I have given the star mark, that I will explain to it later. It is an amendment actually. So whenever the goods are getting transported by way of road, we need to check. We need to first arrive at one conclusion. If the transportation of goods is happening by way of road, either by way of a GTA or courier agency, then only there is a question of taxability. if the goods and transportation services are getting provided by road, we need to check, is it by way of GTA or courier agency? If it is by GTA or courier agency, well and good. If it is not by GTA or courier agency, it will be exempt. If someone else other than GTA, other than courier agency, if someone else is providing the transportation of goods by way of road, then it will be exempt. Now, even in GTA also, if the services are provided by GTA, if the transportation of goods services are getting provided by GTA, now you have to check. In most of the cases, it is taxable, that too under RCM, and in few cases, it will be exempted. So, in case of services of transportation of goods by road, that too by GTA, we need to follow this order. In case if the goods which are getting transported by GTA falling under random category. Sir, what is random category? This we have already covered. So, if the goods are getting transported by road through a GTA, and if they are falling under random category, exempt. No, sir, they are not falling under random category. Then we will start coming to the next few points. In the same order, you have to follow. So if the goods are getting transported, they are not falling under random category also, but the recipient is a specified recipient. Sir, who is specified recipient? This we have already covered under charge. So factory, registered under Factories Act, society, cooperative society, body, corporate, partnership firm, including LLP and AOP, already registered person, including registered CTP. If the recipients falls under any of the specified recipients and the goods are not falling under random category, then the services will be taxable, and they will always be taxable under reverse charge mechanism. That means the recipient will be liable to pay the amount of GST under RCM. So they are taxable under RCM. So if the recipient is a specified recipient, then it will get covered under RCM. Now, if the recipient is a specified recipient, but if the recipient is such a person who is a department or establishment of central government or state government, local authority, government agency who has taken registration only for deducting TDS under section number 51. So the recipient is a registered person, but he is such a registered person who is a department or establishment of central government, state government, union territory, local authority or government agency who has taken registration only for deducting TDS under section number 51. Then it is exempted. No RCM, no FCM. This point also I have covered it in the charge. Then if any other recipient is there, that means if the recipient is not a specified recipient, if for some other recipient, who is that other recipient? Unregistered individual person. If they are receiving the services of GTA, exempted. No RCM, no FCM, it will be exempted. So this is what regarding services provided by GTA. You have to follow the same order. First you have to check, are the goods falling under random? If yes, exempt. Then you have to check, is the recipient is a specified recipient? Then it will be taxable under RCM. Even though recipient is a specified recipient, if they have taken registration only for the purpose of deducting TDS under section number 51, then also they are exempt. And if any other recipient is there, then it will be exempt. Now what about courier agency, sir? Courier agency, no exceptions, nothing. Always it will become taxable. Courier agency, no exceptions, nothing, always it will become taxable. Now at various places I have kept the star mark. Where I have kept the star mark? Services by way of transportation of goods by way of inland waterways, services provided by way of a GTA, and services provided by way of transportation of goods by road, and others. That too others category. So at these three places I have given star mark, right? So what is that star mark is, they say one point here, that exemption, whatever we have told exemption, that exemption will not become available for local delivery services. If you are providing local delivery services either through e-commerce operator or by e-commerce operator, then exemption will not become applicable. Exemption will not become applicable for local delivery services. Sir, what is local delivery services? Through Rapido, we are booking the parcel, no. Through Zepto, we are getting the local delivery services, no. So exemption will not become applicable for local delivery services. So exemption will not be available for local delivery services, whether through e-commerce operator or by e-commerce operator. So that is what non-applicability of exemption in local delivery services, which are getting provided either through e-commerce operator or by e-commerce operator. So here I would request you to refer that amendments video once. To refer the amendments video for May 2026, whatever video I have uploaded, just refer that amendments video. There you will try to understand the entire background and connecting points here. Here I am just giving you the summary here. So, but I would suggest you to refer to that amendments video once. Understood? So these are the exemptions which are related to goods transportation services. So we have covered passenger transportation services. We have also covered goods transportation services. Now we will come to the next part. So this is one more last part. This one more part I will take up. Remaining all exemptions are more or less direct, simple, straightforward. This is where many students will face the difficulty. So I will try to revise these services which are provided by government. Thereafter I will try to wind up the revision of the exemptions chapter as well. So services provided by government. Government will be providing various kinds of services. Now, there are exemptions relating to services which are provided by government also. There are various exemptions which are related to services provided by government also. Let us see what are that exemptions which are applicable for services which are provided by government. Let us see. So number one, activities which are entrusted to a municipality or panchayat under Article 243G or W. So if a panchayat, or see, I'm connecting multiple dots here, listen carefully. I have tried to summarize the government services provided by government across various chapters. I have tried to summarize it in the form of these charts. Okay, so a lot of effort has gone into it to bring this chart before you. Listen carefully. So if panchayat is there, or if any municipality is there, if they are performing any activities in relation to any function entrusted to them under Article 243G or Article 243W of the Constitution, those activities performed by panchayats or municipalities under Article 243G and Article 243W of the Constitution, they are not treated as supply only. So if you go back to the supply chapter, there we have non-supplies. Non-supplies by way of a notification, we have read one point. So there it will get covered. So if your activity entrusted to a municipality or panchayat under Article 243G or W, that is not at all a supply. No question of GST. Similarly, if the state government is granting alcoholic liquor license, that is also not a supply. This is also something we have covered in the supply chapter. Services provided by state government by way of grant of license for sale of alcoholic liquor for human consumption, not at all a supply. So these two activities which are provided by the governments, first thing, they will not be supply only. If they are not supply, there is no question of GST. Now, remaining activities, whatever other activities which are provided by government, they will fall under supply. They will fall under supply, but just because they are falling under supply, they are not always taxable. Even though they fall under supply also, there are some exemptions. They might fall under supply definition, but there are various exemptions. So what are that exemptions? For the remaining activities, what are that exemptions? So that remaining activities which are provided by government, that we are going to divide into two categories: specified services, others. So whatever remaining services are there which are getting provided by government, they will fall under supply definition. For exemption purposes, we are going to divide them into two categories. One is a specified service, other one is others category. First, we will talk about what is specified service. What will fall under specified services? See, specified services are those services which are taxable, that too under forward charge mechanism. That too under what? Forward charge mechanism, subject to some little exemptions. So specific services, in case of remaining activities which are performed by government, which are falling under supply definition, first thing what you should do is, we need to check, is that activity falling under specified services? If they are falling under specified services, mostly they will be taxable, subject to some little exemptions, and mostly they will be taxable under forward charge. Sorry. Mostly they will sorry. Mostly they will be taxable under forward charge mechanism only. Mostly they will be taxable under forward charge mechanism. So what are that specified services? Number one, services provided by way of Department of Post. So we have a post office which is providing various services. That post office is also a department of government only. That services provided by post office are also services provided by government only. So when it comes to services by Department of Post, if those services are relating to postcard, inland letter, book post, and ordinary post of less than 10 grams, that will be exempt. So these are services provided by the Department of Post, exempt. Remaining services, all other services provided by Department of Post will be taxable, that too taxable under forward charge mechanism. That too, those are taxable under what? Forward charge mechanism. Like for example, today if you go and avail the services of speed post with the post office, they will collect from you GST also. That the speed post charges along with GST. Post office only will collect the amount of GST from you and pay it to the government. So by Department of Post, these services will be exempted. Remaining services will become taxable under forward charge mechanism. Then Ministry of Railways. Ministry of Railways also will be providing bunch of services. So when it comes to Ministry of Railways, a few services are exempted. Sir, what are that few services which are exempted? Sale of platform tickets, retiring or waiting or cloakrooms, battery operated car services. These services provided by Ministry of Railways, exempt. Interzone or interdivision services. That means services provided by one division of railways to another railways. Services provided by one zone of railways to another zone of railways, exempted. SPV, by services provided by way of SPV. This is not applicable for you at the CA inter level. You can ignore this. This is not applicable for CA inter. This is a point for CA final. So, but this I have prepared one comprehensive chart. This you can remember. SPV service. This you can ignore it. So these SPV services are also exempted. Ignore for CA final. Just write it. I will write it here. This is for CA final, not for CA inter. Next. This is also for CA final. Next point is also for CA final. This also you need not remember it here. This is also for CA final. Okay. Next, other services. So whatever other services we have, those all will become taxable under forward charge mechanism. Remaining all services will fall under forward charge mechanism. So by way of Ministry of Railways, for your CA Inter, whatever is relevant that I am teaching you, just remember it. Sale of platform tickets, retiring or waiting or clock rooms or battery operated car services exempted. Services provided by one zone or division of railways to another zone or division exempted. Remaining all services will be taxable under forward charge mechanism. But however, subject to passenger transportation exemptions. Services provided by Ministry of Railways by way of transportation in other than first class, other than air conditioned coach, that is exempted. So remaining all services will become taxable under forward charge mechanism. So other services taxable under forward charge mechanism. Next, so specified service number 1, specified service number 2. Now let us come to the other one. Third kind of specified service. Services of transportation of goods and passengers. Governments also will provide services by way of transportation of goods and passengers. Those services are also taxable under forward charge mechanism, subject to exemptions provided for transportation of goods and passengers. So if the government is providing the services of transportation of goods and passengers, that will be taxable. However, for that some exemptions are there. Where exemptions are there? That goods transportation services related exemptions, passenger transportation service related exemptions that I have already covered. Subject to that exemptions, if some transportation of goods and services are getting provided by the government and if they are not falling under exemptions, then they will become taxable, that too under forward charge mechanism. Then finally, services in relation to an aircraft or vessel, either inside or outside the precincts of a port or airport. If the government is providing the services in relation to a vessel, in relation to an aircraft, either within the precincts or outside the precincts of a port or airport, then those services will be taxable under forward charge mechanism. So these are specified services here. So in case if they are asking you a question regarding services provided by government, first you have to check whether that service is falling under any of these 4 specified services. So if it is falling under 4 specified services, first you should check in that specified service also whether it is falling under exemptions. If not, they will be taxable under forward charge mechanism. Then in case if they are asking a question regarding service provided by government and if that service is not coming under specified services, if that service is not coming under specified services, then it will come under other services. So now when it comes to other services, what is the taxability status? Who is liable to pay the GST? Let us see. So when it comes to any other service, and if those services are provided to non-business entities, apart from specified services, if any other services are getting provided by government and if the recipient is a non-business entity, like some individual or some person is getting services who is, and the recipient is not a business entity, exempt. Other than specified service, if any other service is getting provided and if the recipient is a non-business entity, no GST liability, no FCM, no RCM, it is exempt. However, if the recipient is a business entity, but if that business entity is such a business entity, if that business entity is a small business entity, sir, what is small business entity? If the recipient is a business entity with the aggregate turnover less than or equal to applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, if the recipient is a business entity only, but if that business entity is a small business entity, how to identify that small business entity? If they are having an aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year less than or equal to applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, then what they have told, then specifically we need to check, is that service is in relation to renting of immovable property. If it is in relation to renting of immovable property, then it will be taxable. If the recipient is a registered person, if the recipient is a business entity and he is also a registered person, taxable under RCM. If the recipient is unregistered person, then also it will be taxable under forward charge mechanism. But here one general exemption limit will be there. Renting of immovable property also will become taxable only when the consideration is more than 5,000. Only when the consideration is more than 5,000, then only it will become taxable. So once again, if you come back to the chart, other services provided by the government and the recipient is a business entity, that business entity is a small business entity whose aggregate turnover is less than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, then all other services will be exempted except the renting of immovable property. That too, renting of immovable property when the consideration is more than 5,000 rupees, it will become taxable. If the recipient is registered person, taxable under reverse charge mechanism. If the recipient is unregistered person, it will be taxable under forward charge mechanism. Okay, now who is left out, sir? Any other service other than specified service provided by the government to a business entity, to a big business entity. Sir, what is a big business entity? That business entity whose aggregate turnover exceeds applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year. any other service provided by the government to a business entity, and that business entity is having a aggregate turnover more than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, then what will happen? They will be taxable under reverse charge mechanism, but subject to exemptions. They will be taxable under RCM. The recipient itself is liable to pay the GST under RCM, but subject to some exemptions. Some exemptions are there. Sir, what are that exemptions? So these are some exemptions. These are some exemptions. So if the recipient is a business entity whose aggregate turnover is more than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, they will be taxable under RCM, but subject to some specific exemptions. So what are that exemptions? Number one, if the consideration for any service is less than or equal to 5,000 rupees. Government is providing service to a recipient who is a business entity. Business entity is also is having aggregate turnover more than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year. Generally, it should be taxable under RCM. But however, one exemption is there. If the consideration is less than or equal to 5,000, exempt. In case of continuous supply, check that limit for entire financial year. That 5,000 rupees of limit, you have to check it for the entire financial year. Next, government entity supplies services to central government, state government, union territory, local authority, or a person specified if the consideration is in the form of grants. So some specific exemptions they are saying. So in case if the government entity is a supplier of service, and if the recipient is central government, state government, union territory, local authority, or anybody who is identified by the central government or state government or union territory and local authority, where they are getting the consideration in the form of grants, exempt. Then central government, state government, union territory, if it is providing the services by way of guaranteeing the loans, they are providing the guarantee to the loans which are taken by their undertakings or PSUs from banking companies or financial institutions, exempt. Exempt. Next, registration. If the service is provided by way of any registration required under any law for the time being in force, exempt. Testing, calibration, safety checks, certification relating to protection, safety of workers, consumer or public at large, including fire license, exempt. Next, assignment of right to use natural resources to an individual farmer for cultivation of plants or rearing of animals, exempt. Issuance of passport, visa, driving license, birth certificate, death certificate, exempt. Tolerating non-performance of a contract for which consideration in the form of fines or liquidated damages, exempt. Deputing the officers after office hours or on holidays for inspection or container stuffing on payment of merchant overtime charges, exempt. Assignment of right by state government to ERCC to collect mineral royalty is also GST exempt. So there will be one point. So state government will provide the services to ERCC by way of collection of royalty from that miners. So that services are also exempted, but there is some condition attached to it that you can refer to it in the material in a detailed manner. Then granting national permit to a goods carriage, exempt. Providing information under RTI Act. So these are the specific exemptions here. So in case if the recipient is a business entity which is having a aggregate turnover more than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, then mostly they will be taxable under reverse charge mechanism, but subject to that exemptions. If they are falling under this exemptions list, then there will be no GST. If that service is not falling under that exemptions, then it will become taxable under reverse charge mechanism. One small note point I have given: in case of renting of immobile property, if the recipient is unregistered, in case if the government is providing renting of immobile property to a recipient who is aggregate turnover is more than applicable threshold limit in the preceding financial year, but because of some reason if he is unregistered, still in that one case what will happen is forward charge mechanism will become applicable. It will be taxable, but it will come under forward charge mechanism. That means if in case of renting of immobile property to a big business entity, in majority of the cases recipient will be registered only. Since his recipient is registered, RCM will become applicable. But in some cases, recipient will be a large business entity, but he is not registered. But he could be unregistered. In that case also renting of immobile property will become taxable, but that under forward charge mechanism. Okay, so this is what one comprehensive chart for exemptions relating to services which are provided by government. Okay, few more small exemptions are there which are very frequently tested. So one or two exemptions are there which are very important that I wanted to bring your attention to that. What are that means? So this passenger transportation I have covered, goods transportation I have covered. Thereafter, banking and financial services. See, when it comes to banking and financial services, services given by way of loan, extending deposits, in so far as the consideration is in the form of interest or discount. Like for example, if the bank is giving you loan, or if you are giving loan to others, deposit to others, and if the consideration is in the form of interest or discount, it is exempt. But one point you have to remember here: only interest or discount is exempted. Any other charges like processing charges, loan processing charges, technical charges, late fee charges, so like that, whatever charges are there, they will become taxable. Any additional charges, documentation charges, all that charges will become taxable. And even when it comes to interest also, credit card interest is not exempted. credit card interest will become taxable. All other kind of interest and discount is exempted except credit card interest. For credit card interest, there is no exemption available. Credit card interest will become taxable. And beyond interest and discount, if any other charges are collected, they will also be taxable. Next, whatever services which are provided to basic savings deposit scheme under Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, any service provided to a account holder under Jan Dhan Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, exempted. Next, forex services. I want to talk about this forex services. So we have many things here, but only important things I'm going to concentrate here. Sale or purchase of foreign currency among banks or authorized dealers of forex among banks or such dealers is exempted. That means forex transaction, sale or buying, selling or buying of foreign currency. So if that sale or exchange of foreign currency is happening between the banks, exempt. If that exchange of foreign currency is happening between authorized forex dealers, let us say for example Western Union to other Thomas Cook, if that forex transaction is either happening among the banks, or if that forex transaction is happening among the authorized dealers, or if the transaction is happening between the banks and authorized forex dealers, then only exemption. If the bank is providing the forex services to a common person like you and me, taxable. If authorized money dealer is providing that forex services to an individual or other person like you and me, that will become taxable. So only when the foreign exchange related transactions are happening among the banks or among the authorized money dealers or between the banks and authorized money dealers, then only exemption will become applicable. When they are provided to common man, then they will be taxable. Okay, so this much is enough in the case of banking and financial services. This is not the one which I want to focus. The thing which I want to focus here is two amendments are there. Two amendments are there in the area of exemptions. Two amendments are there. So that amendments I have referred to it in the amendments video, but here I will give you one reference here. So two amendments are, what are the two amendments is services of life insurance services. Life insurance business which is provided to a recipient, and that recipient must be either an individual or family other than group. It is exempted. Services of life insurance business provided by an insurer to the insured, and who must be insured. Insured can be either an individual or individual along with his family, but the recipient should not be a group. Then life insurance business is exempted. Not just life insurance, even health insurance business which is provided by an insurer to the insured, and that insured must be either an individual or he must be a family, but he should not be a group, then it will be exempted. So one line summary if I have to say it here, life insurance business or health insurance business when provided to the insured, and if the insured is not a group, insured should be either individual or his family. So services provided, basically what they're trying to say here is life insurance and health insurance services provided to individual persons and their families are exempted. However, if the insured is a group, like company has taken a policy on all their employees, not exempted, taxable. So like this, group insurance policies are taxable. Other than group, individual or family business, individual or family related life insurance business and health insurance business are exempted. Not just main insurance, reinsurance of that insurance services are also exempted. So reinsurance of these life insurance and health insurance businesses are also exempted. So I have explained about this in a detailed manner. What is group, what is not group, what is family and all. I have explained it in the amendments video. Please do refer to that amendments video. You will get the more clarity there. Next. So this is what one amendment you have to remember. Then one more thing which I want to talk about here is there are some very frequent questions which will be tested. So those are this one. This performance by an artist. This I want to speak about it. So services by way of an artist by way of performance in either a folk or classical art forms. So exemption is there only when the performance is done by an artist, that too in the folk or classical art forms. So in Western art forms, if they are doing any performance, then there will be no exemption available. So exemption will be available only when the performance is done by an artist in either folk or classical art forms of music, dance, theatre. Exempted, provided if the consideration charged for such performance is not more than 1,50,000 rupees. So if there is an artist, he or she is doing the performance in folk or classical art forms of music, dance or theatre, and for that if the consideration is charged is not more than 1,50,000. If it is less than or equal to 1,50,000 rupees, it will be exempted. If the consideration is more than 1,50,000, entire value will be taxable. Not just the value exceeding 1,50,000, entire value will become taxable. Let us say if an artist is doing a performance for which she is receiving a consideration of 1,60,000. Will it be taxable? Yes. How much amount is taxable? Full amount. Full 1,60,000 rupees will become taxable. Okay. Next. However, this does not include services provided as a brand ambassador. If this does not include services provided as in the capacity of a brand ambassador, for that exemption will not become applicable irrespective of the amount. It will become taxable. So this is one thing which I wanted you to remember. And thereafter, one more point which I want to remember. See, this services of residential welfare association is also important, but I'm not revising it. Why? Because in the recent times only they have asked some complicated questions in this residential welfare association. So that's why very frequently they do not test it again and again. So that's why I'm skipping it. So one more point which I wanted to tell you is this one here. This is also one important area. Services provided to a recognized sports body by individual. So if an individual is providing the services to a recognized sports body, either as a player, referee, umpire, coach, or team manager, for participating in a sporting event by a organized by a recognized sports body, so that will be exempted. So if someone is providing the services to a recognized sports body, an individual is providing the services to a recognized sports body, in which capacity? In the capacity as a player, referee, umpire, coach, team manager. Only for these services exemption is there. So if you are an individual, you are providing your services to a recognized sports body either as a player or as a referee or as an umpire or as a coach or as a team manager, then only exemption will be there. However, if if the individual is providing services as a selector, commentator, curator, technical expert, these are taxable. So this is one favorite area for the examiner. So only when services are provided by individual in the capacity of a player, referee, umpire, coach, or team manager, only for these 5 services provided by an individual to the recognized sports body is exempted. However, services provided as selector, commentator, curator, technical expert, they will become taxable. Okay, so this is what one point which I would like to bring it to your attention here. So these are the important areas of exemptions. Yes, we did not cover some exemptions, but as you all are aware, exemptions is a very large chapter. If we have to revise the entire thing, that will go for 3 hours, 4 hours, something like that. So but here the objective is to do the revision in a short span of time. So I think I have covered all the majority of the exemptions. So take care, my dear students. Prepare well for the exams. Don't waste your time. I hope you are not doing it. Don't do it even further also. So till the time you clear the exam, only one target in your mind: preparation, preparation, preparation. So that only should be there in your mind. So get through the examination. All the very best. Take care. See you with some more interesting resources. Bye.